when you're ready to start paying attention to our podcast, finally you can do that?
I mean, I've never given it more than like 30% attention.
Sorry, did you say something?
I said I've never given this podcast more than 30% of my attention. I actually resent it. Totally. Everything. All the viewers. You.
I just wish we were reading Empire's End again. I loved it so much.
Yeah. I'm just going to read Empire's End probably. Oh, we're live, Corey? You didn't tell me? I was saying all these terrible things about our loving supporters.
All right. Hello there, everyone, and welcome. Oh, what?
Just restart it.
Did you have something to say?
I was just going to do some small talk. You have a Corey Loser shirt on right now?
I do, actually. It's a terrible shirt. I can shift up a bit. It's not great. I took it off of the I think it's Teespring store. I took everything off the Teespring store because I got this and the sweater and I wasn't thrilled with them. So maybe someday.
That's more integrity than I have. Congratulations.
Well, I also have my EckhartsLadder shirt that's been featured on at least 2 or 3 episodes of Tapcaf Transmissions.
And how do you feel about that one?
I actually really liked that one. I got the same material. I think it's just yours is like the smaller lettering, so it goes on better. Because with this, the problem, I don't think anyone can see it. There's like white outlines to all of it that isn't intended to be there.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure how they actually did it, and it wasn't. Yeah. But anyways, hello there, everyone. And welcome to another installation of Tapcaf Transmissions, our Star Wars Book Club podcast, where we have so far been talking about, I guess we can't even say we've just talked about Legend stuff, because we did do the Rise of Skywalker episode. But we don't count that in the numbering of the episodes, so we're actually one episode ahead of where we say we are.
And from what I've heard, on certain platforms, that's been replaced with like a second discussion of like the Krytos trap or something.
No, it was the other way around, where the Back to War episode was... Thank you for bringing this up, actually. The Back to War episode was replaced with the Rise of Skywalker episode, so there was 2 of those. But I have fixed it, and now the back door is back up. So if you want to go back to the back door is now open for people to download if you're interested in the back door.
Oh, God, I hate this podcast.
So thank you to people who've been super chatting, because we do this as a podcast. I usually don't directly respond to those while the podcast is going on, or Justin usually doesn't. I've never gotten a donation during the podcast before, so this is all very exciting for me. But after our last few episodes on the Dark Empire and Empire's End comic books, we are back to the regular papery books, where we are going to be talking about Jedi Search this episode. Book 1 of the Jedi Academy Trilogy, so the next 2 episodes will be about Dark Apprentice and Champions of the Force. This is set pretty much right after Dark Empire. There were some questions about whether we were going to do Isard's Revenge, because that is set before these and before Dark Empire. We are going to be looping back to those at some point. We just want to keep some of those ones in our back pocket next to the back door. So
right. Yeah, we'd like to go back to X-Wing at some point. Maybe we'll do like Isard's Revenge, some of the other standalone X-Wing books or something.
Because there's like that, there's Tatooine Ghost, there's a bunch of post-Endor books that are more standalone. But between Starfighters Vatamar, Isard's Revenge, Jedi, we've got 3 more of those pre-Vong War X-Wing-ish books. So
yes, I'm excited for Jedi.
I
picked up I showed you this, but one of my local bookstores gets like a new inventory of Star Wars Legends books like on a monthly basis. So I picked up I didn't have a copy of Jedi Search, or a book copy, at least not a new one. So I picked up a new copy of Jedi Search. The first book I've actually read, I think, non-digitally, because all my other ones I've read on a Kindle. And isn't this the first one
for the
that you've read on a
podcast
Kindle?
or ever?
Oh, for the podcast.
I didn't actually read this on Kindle. I bought my Kindle after I'd already started reading the paper copy.
Gotcha.
So I stuck with that. But I did start reading Jedi on my Kindle yesterday.
That's long. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that?
Why did I start reading Jedi?
Jedi, yeah.
Because
it's long AF.
Well, there was something I needed for a video. Oh, did that not update? Yeah, there was something I needed for a video,
Mhm.
and then I just started reading it. Why is this wrong? Oh, I think that's why.
But
okay, that should be correct now. Sorry.
But did you get a hardcover copy as well?
No, I'm not cool enough to get a hardcover copy of Jedi
Oh,
Search.
okay.
So,
No, sorry, Jedi.
oh
no, you said you were reading that on your.
I'm reading
Kindle.
that on my Kindle. I don't think I might have a paper copy of Jedi, but
Outstanding.
I'm looking at it right
here.
now. It's right there. So welcome to
Corey and Justin's discussion.
Corey and Justin's inventory of Star Wars paperback and hardcover books.
Dude, I would listen to a podcast about like.
Did you
Star
watch
Wars
the video
Legends.
I did where I was unbagging?
I did,
my book?
yeah.
Okay, so
I enjoyed that.
I was going to call you out for lying there, but I guess you showed me.
Well, I said podcast as well, and I said listen.
Yeah, but that was like a test run for that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, anything you want to talk about before we get into the book? There's been a few more episodes of Clone Wars. There's been,
Rise of Skywalker novelization.
Rise of Skywalker novelization.
We did get a question about that as well, but I don't know if we're gonna potentially do an episode just on that book. So maybe we'll hold off any conversation on that.
I don't think it's worth it. I read it. To be honest, I don't think it's worth the whole episode. It's not like Revenge of the Sith level or anything. It's pretty short. Like it's under 300 pages.
We could eventually do something that's more like a general discussion on the movie novelizations.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I think Revenge of the Sith deserves its own episode.
Yeah,
but that with Labyrinth of Evil at the same time would be good. But
yes, agreed. We can move into some of like the Dark Lord and whatever else. Like lots of good books in that area. But yeah, have you been watching Clone Wars?
I have. I think we talked about it a bit last time where what the general arc is right now isn't something that I like as much. I'm really looking forward to some of the later parts of it. But like I enjoy the episodes for what they are. It's just the style of it isn't what I'm really looking forward to. Because I don't like the clone drama wasn't, or the Bad Batch, that particular. I don't like the Bad Batch. And the Echo 5, that whole arc / whatever grouping was never as interesting to me either. Those characters.
Domino Squad?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Did we talk about I can't remember if we talked about Project Luminous or the High Republic last episode.
No, I don't think it had been announced.
No, it hadn't, because you're right. So I'll give a basic kind of overview. What was called Project Luminous has been revealed to be called the High Republic. It's basically a Star Wars multimedia project, kind of akin to like Shadows of the Empire or The Force Unleashed or something like that. Right now, we know that we only know of comics and novels. But I assume if it does well, or maybe they're already in the works, that we might get perhaps a TV show or a movie. I'd say those are more unlikely than something like a video game.
I don't know, because there's always been kind of rumblings of Knights of the Old Republic getting a sequel or a remake that seem to have been more official than...
I've talked to some people who think that there's already High Republic video game in the works.
Well, there was the former Respawn guy who was moved to another company, where he basically confirmed Respawn was already working on another game, which is presumed to be Fallen Order 2. But who knows if it's going to be like continuation of Cal's story or if they'd go and have kind of the same concept in another time period. Because High Republic might be an option for that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we don't really know a whole lot about kind of the plot of the High Republic. It'll probably be interesting to cover once they start releasing novels on the podcast. I imagine we might do something with that. But we know it's set, 200 years before the Phantom Menace?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the
Is it 200 years before the Phantom Menace or 200 years before Yavin? It's not really before
Phantom Menace, I think.
Distinction, but
30 years is pretty big. I think it's 30 years. I think it's 200 before the Phantom Menace. I'm pretty sure.
Well, I assume all this stuff coming out is probably going to cover a few years anyways in that period. So
right. But yeah, it's kind of in a halcyon age of Jedi, which to me is weird because it's hard to imagine that the Jedi. I don't know if you agreed, but in my video I kind of talked about how it felt like the timeline's being a little too condensed now, given how like old you'd think the Republic and the Jedi would be. The fact that they've declined so much in 200 years. So I kind of wish that they had pushed it back a little bit. I'm not sure how much they can do in 200 years. Like how do they do a major like galaxy changing event that we don't hear referenced in the
Yeah.
Clone Wars or the prequels or anything? That's going to be the hardest part, I think.
Yeah, like my concern there is that we know that the 1,000 years before the Clone Wars was basically peaceful and kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's pretty explicitly stated. I
Right.
don't think the compressed amount of time is the problem so much as that. Like, even if it's something that didn't come up in the prequels, that's something we've always dealt with Star Wars, where it's like, okay, we know the whole story isn't fleshed out. So if something comes up,
Yeah.
fine. Because, like, the time between even legacy comics and the Clone Wars is just under 200 years, because like 134 ABY
That is
for
true.
so that's 160 years total, and there's a
Mhm.
lot that changes. Like you have the entire Clone Wars, the entire
Four
history of the
galactic
Empire,
governments, basically.
the New Republic, Yuzon Vong War happens, Darkness Crisis
Mhm.
happens, then Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi happens. Then there's like 60 years where we don't know what happens, but we know something has to happen because the whole like half the galaxy is under the Corellian faction, and then it's not anymore. So a lot can happen. It's just this is a period where we've explicitly been told
Right.
you don't really get that, and where we know the outcome, which is another thing.
Yeah, one of the weird things for me too is like I feel like they're going to go for like a difference in aesthetics as well. Like just looking at it, like the Jedi look very different, like almost medieval, I guess.
Yeah,
Um, so it is different than like Knights of the Old Republic, where that's 4,000 years earlier, and like there is clear technological difference, but I think it's going to be more drastic, perhaps 200 years earlier. Um, then like I think this 200 years might see a more drastic technological change than the 4,000 years between the Old Republic and or sorry, KOTOR and the other canon in Legend. So it's going to be kind of weird because that really kind of shifts how the timeline is,
yeah.
if that makes sense.
And I guess kind of the counterpoint to some of the stuff about it, nothing really
Mm-hmm.
happening, is that it doesn't have to be a galactic scale war. You can still have smaller, more local things. And I think even though The Mandalorian, for example, takes place in the context of the
Mm-hmm.
Empire collapsing everything, but that show has kind of been focused on just more character related goals rather
Mm-hmm.
than necessarily having to be part of a galactic war. But then there's the whole nil thing. But we'll have to
Yeah,
see.
and so the nil seems to be it's not a race, right? It's more like a collection,
Cult
is it?
kind of thing, I
Because
think. Yeah.
I saw like I think I saw like I can't remember what the alien race was, but familiar aliens within it, right? So it's kind of like and there's some sort of grant or some sort of big event or cataclysm, which kind of seemed interesting. Um, so I think there's a potential there. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't go full multimedia project and announce a video game as well, even if there is one that comes later. I don't know. The new canon books haven't quite got my attention yet, like the like Legends, and admittedly, this is one of their first major chances to do so because they're kind of working new territory, which is nice. But yeah, I think I would have been more excited personally if they had announced a video game or something.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
a video game at this point would be far enough away that it'd be probably more damaging than anything to announce a video game now.
mm,
Because
right.
anything that they might be planning was probably contingent on the success of Fallen Order, kind of seeing how that
Hmm.
goes. And so, well, they might have had some like pre-production going on. If you announce anything too specific now, then it's just such a huge lead up time
Hmm.
that if
So
something
I
gets
guess then the
canceled or
other
shifted
option would have
around,
been
yeah.
to wait because it is. I was surprised honestly that Luminous was being announced so soon after Episode 9. So I guess they could have waited a year, but I guess they kind of wanted to fill the void pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think they just want to make sure people are aware that there is still more coming, even though 9 is
Hmm.
out. That probably what the logic there is.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, even with, if you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though people knew there was going to be Phase 4,
Right.
it was a lot calmer after the Infinity what is it called? Infinity Chronicles saga, whatever.
I don't
When the last
know.
Avengers movie came out,
Yeah.
then there hasn't really been much to go on, but you still knew
Yeah.
more
Well,
Spider-Man was happening,
but they
more
kind of,
Black Widow was happening.
yeah. But and I think that kind of makes sense because, but the difference there, I would argue, is they kind of filled the gap with like standalone stories. Like I haven't seen it, but Far From Home, I think is fairly standalone. Um, and then they've got like the Black Widow movie. So I kind of wonder why they didn't. Or I guess what I'm saying is an alternative would have been rely on maybe the new Zahn trilogy, rely on other kind of one-off stories maybe to fill the gap, and then when you're ready for this big new canon launch, maybe then you can bring in a video game and stuff with stuff in between. But I don't know. It's kind of an academic discussion anyway. At the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. All right, so do you want to get into some Jedi searching?
Nothing else you want to talk about? You don't want to announce the update for your mods?
I no.
No, okay.
Fall of the Republic 0.6 came out, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, let's talk about Jedi Search. I really like this book. I'm going to say right off the bat,
Yeah, me too.
I really enjoyed reading it. Like almost to the degree that I enjoyed reading the X-wing books and more at certain points.
I don't know if it quite got up to X-wing books for me,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely really liked it. There's only one section that stood out to me as being unentertaining, and like I actually went into these books like having bad memories of them, or just thinking that I didn't really enjoy them that much the first time, and kind of dreading getting
Yeah.
back into the stuff with like the Kessel mines and everything. But then I even really enjoyed that, so I was pleasantly surprised, and I remember liking the next two books a lot more when I read them the first time. So I'm really looking forward to that now too.
Yeah, for me, it's like in my mind, these books were sharing a lot of real estate with the Callista trilogy, which is more Kevin. Well, not I think one Kevin J. Anderson book in there, but also features Dala and comes out right after these. And those I think are a lot lesser quality than these three books. But yeah, I kind of felt the same way. I was like, well, sometimes Kevin J. Anderson does get crapped on by Legends fans, and not everyone likes these books. But to me, they're very almost in the same way that Courtship of Princess Leia was. They're very light in a way. Terrible things are happening, but they're very easy to read books. They're kind of adventures. I think they do a good job bringing all the characters in. Yeah, maybe it's a little excessive for Lando to have to feature so heavily in the story or whatever else. But they do a good job writing the characters. I think the story of going to Kessel is pretty unique. I think they bring in the Imperial faction in this book in kind of a fun way. So overall, right now anyway, yeah, I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah, if I had to like compare it to anything or another author, like you can kind of break it up into the Bantam period and the Del Rey period, and I think Kevin Anderson is kind of like the Bantam period's James Luceno, even though he does obviously stay involved.
For sure.
But just the way the references are made, but it's still the more kind of strange Bantam style that like the Thrawn trilogy. I guess even the Thrawn trilogy has that kind of style, but it feels a lot more like Tristan Bakura, Courtship of Princess Leia, than the grittier, almost more realistic style that Del Rey ended up going into with New Jedi Order.
Right.
Or darker, not necessarily more realistic, but
yeah, and I mean, I was actually surprised at how well this drew on information from other books. Like I didn't remember there being so many overt references to like what happens in Dark Empire and the Thrawn trilogy.
yeah.
I mean, we even get references to Courtship of Princess Leia, and that book hadn't even been released yet, which is pretty cool. It's really the only reference really relates to Han gambling for a planet. I don't know if that was hinted at somewhere else earlier,
No, but well, it's definitely talking about like it's definitely pulling that stuff directly from courtship because it does reference the like Luke wants to include the Night Sisters from Dathomir as some of his first students.
Yeah, it does mention that at the end.
And I think it's also called out with the Rancor in the cell.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Which
very weird to imprison a non-sapient being.
Well, you cage animals sometimes. Like I think that's just what it was. But
a prison, yeah, fair enough.
Well, you're not just going to build a separate set of cages when you have a perfectly suitable cage for your Rancor.
Look, why not just kill the Rancor?
Well, they kind of did. I think they wanted to feed the other Imperials to it. Was their deal?
Yeah, but the Rancor was imprisoned by the Empire. So like,
oh, so you're saying the Empire? Yeah, I was still thinking about the next people. Yeah, I don't know why the Empire really wanted it, but
yeah. But yeah, there's. I mean, we get a lot of most things ignore Dark Empire, but we get references to like Coruscant throughout this whole book is basically being repaired because it got ravaged at the beginning of Dark Empire 1. We get references to like Cam Solusar. We get just lots of talk about Luke falling to the dark side and becoming basically the new Darth Vader. But we also get references to Thrawn. We talk about there's characters from both series. We get Garmbel Iblis in this book. We get lots of Winter. We get mention of dreadnoughts, and it's really well done. I mean, it's not like there was too much to draw off of here, but I think Kevin J. Anderson really references all the main books, not necessarily. I think Jedi Prince had started being released by this point. So he doesn't reference anything from there that I picked up on. But even like the Cyruvi get name dropped 2 or 3 times.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm curious to see whether he kind of continues this in the subsequent novels.
Yeah, one of the interesting things with the Cyruvi is that, and I'm going to forget to bring it up later, so I do want to make sure we mention it now, is that when Dala is kind of seeing the state of the galaxy, they do mention the Cyruvi, even now about, this would be 7 years after Truce of Bakura, they mention like still ongoing war. We kind of get the mention of that in the X-Wing series, that there's mopping up against the Cyruvi, and they have more territory. Like it's implied here, just the way it's worded, that they have more territory than the Empire does, that they even know about. So that's I do like that there's all this stuff going on in the background. I just wish we would have seen maybe a bit more of the Cyruvi at some point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we only get them really again in NJO for one book, and it's not super satisfying.
No. But one other reference with Dark Empire that I was kind of thinking about is with we talked about it a bit with Dark Empire and the Thrawn trilogy, with all the competition that was kind of going on between Dark Horse and Bantam authors, and how like Timothy Zahn wanted to just kind of ignore Dark Empire, so they're like, okay, you can do that, but just write your books before it. Like, is there a chance that if Kevin Anderson hadn't done something like Jedi Search, that Anakin Solo just would not have been a character?
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible. I was thinking about that too. Because he's really, I mean, he's written out of the story in a way, but he's also like distinctly included. Like they mention him at every point. And yeah, even more than that, there's a chance that like, I mean, most elements of Dark Empire were ignored, but yeah, like without kind of a nice connecting book like this, the canon could have diverged even more than it ended up doing, and that I think would have been harmful in the end, especially where we do get cool elements from Dark Empire, like Anakin is the main one, I would say. And I guess this is Cam Solusar, the E-Wing.
Thank God you weren't in that when it blew up. Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, though, but I mean, Anakin is huge, and he's, he ends up being the catalyst for much of what happens in the Del Rey era. So
yeah. And like I just want to make sure that we like. It seems like, of course, they wouldn't ignore something that happened in the other property, but I don't want to sleep on the fact that like it's not a given that different stuff made under the same licenses by people who hold the license that are different companies. Like it's not a given that they'd include stuff together, and it's not really until the Holocron in like 1999, 2000, where there was like an active attempt to reconcile all these different parts of Star Wars. Like Marvel in particular was very different from what would come later. And the idea that it had to work towards this bigger universe isn't a given.
Yeah, I mean, we do start to see some with like Mara Jade is included in Dark Forces, I think, or the expansion. And we see, I guess that's like a LucasArts thing. We do see some like video game crossover, but a lot of it's just like. And another thing that this book really does is it draws a lot from old, like the Imperial Source book, for example. There's a lot from the Imperial Source book in here. What's one example? I wrote one down. I can't remember. There's something from there's lots from the Imperial Source book. I think a lot of the Bespin stuff comes from the Bespin and Yavin Source book that came out. And yeah, it's just very clear that, like you said, I think your comparison was the James Luceno comparison is really good, because even if you don't like Kevin Anderson's story, and it is less universally liked than most of what James Luceno writes, you got to at least appreciate the degree to which the canon is integrated. I think is what we're both kind of touching on.
Because like it could have been just as easily that sure, some characters go back and forth, but ultimately Star Wars is just a collection of stories within the same universe rather than a collected canon of shared, like, where it is a continuity. And I think the approach that even authors like Timothy Zahn was especially taking was that he wanted to tell his story within the universe rather than have his story be part of the universe necessarily, or have the universe be part of his story. And I think between like the thing that really pushed it towards being the kind of continuity that at least I like, that makes me as interested in Star Wars as I am, a lot of that is thanks to the RPG source books and specific authors like Kevin Anderson and James Luceno kind of pushing that direction.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, without books like this, Dala could have been, they could have just left her in this trilogy, which would have been a good thing. I'm joking, but like Mara Jade, for example, is name dropped a lot here, and basically Kevin J. Anderson guarantees essentially that she's going to continue being in stories, because that Luke's attempting to get her to join the Academy. Because you're right, if it had been more kind of insular, then maybe Mara Jade only would have been a character when Timothy Zahn was writing books. And I mean, maybe Timothy Zahn would have liked that, because I think he liked to control the characters that he created, and I don't blame him. But it is fairly impressive how the Bantam era did manage to kind of keep everything close together, and then the Del Rey era does so even more, with a more consistent narrative between series and whatnot, between authors.
Okay, I just disappeared for a second to check the release dates of the Corellian trilogy, and that was the year after this, because we have like swashbuckling Mara Jade in that, which is something.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too, because to me the Corellian trilogy feels so far like they really were pumping out a lot of books every year at this point. Like, I'm pretty sure this was 95. I think this book came out. They did all 3 books, plus I think the Crystal Star and maybe book 1 of Callista.
Yeah, Jedi Search is at least 94. Corellian Trilogy is 95, because I think Corellian Trilogy was written within the space of 3 months. Well, Roger McBride was on a train, essentially. Like, his foreword to that book is basically talking about, wow, I really pumped this shit out, didn't I?
Yeah, here's what we have for 94, just for reference. We've got Truce of Bakura in January, Jedi Search in March, Courtship in April, Dark Apprentice, which is book 2 of this series, in July, Champions of the Force, which is book 3 in October, then Crystal Star ending out strong in December. and then you only have to wait until March for Hamish Corellia, and then May for Children of the Jedi. So they were pumping out a lot of material at this point. We don't see that to the same extent nowadays, really. We see a lot of kind of one-off books now, and you will see maybe 3 or 4 a year. But like Bantam was very kind of like blocks of books come out, and it's just kind of, it's impressive to see, just the speed that each piece was coming out. Because nowadays, there's 2 years between each Thrawn book, or 2 years between the Alphabet Squadron book or whatever. So it's impressive to see how fast they got each block out, but also how little time there was between each block. And to me, that suggests that the way they probably were having authors write this is, I'm sure Anderson was writing the Jedi Academy Trilogy. Probably while the Corellian Trilogy was in its early stages, probably while the Callista stuff was being worked on. So that kind of makes the connections even more impressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, because they were definitely, very few of them were probably reading each other's work at that point when it's still coming out. Like Kevin J. Anderson probably was. James Luceno was reading all of it, but he wasn't involved yet. But yeah, so
I think wasn't James Luceno writing source books at this point? Wouldn't he have been contributing to source books?
I think he was, but he wasn't involved in the actual writing of the novels yet. That wasn't until
yeah,
because he was then put in charge of overseeing the New Jedi Order series.
Yeah,
but should we say what this book's about? Because we haven't really talked.
Yeah, do you want to give a brief overview?
All right, so some guy named Luke Skywalker is looking to restart the Jedi Order, and this book is where he's doing his Jedi search, where he's going to be searching for Jedi to restart the Academy. He finds his first 2 students here. We meet a third, even though we don't know it yet. Well, I guess he does do the tests on Kip towards the end, so we can count that. So this is the first book where we meet big names in the New Jedi Order, like Gantoris and Streen, and also Kip Durin, less important. We learn how absent-minded Luke can be, how bad he is at forward thinking.
How little Leia thinks of Han.
Yeah. Han gets trapped on Kessel, and there's some traveling without using light speed that was kind of weird.
Yeah, so basically the way the book starts off is there's kind of 2 plot threads at the beginning. One is Han trying to... it seems like he wants Kessel to join the New Republic, which is weird because it's essentially like a crack den at this point with spiders. Like, essentially a crack, or like a heroin lab.
So it's a meth lab using slave labor, and they're very eager to get them to join the New Republic for some reason.
Yeah. They're like, Kessel refused to join us in the fight against the reborn Palpatine or Thrawn. Like, were you really expecting them to? Like, your expectations of Kessel are a little out of whack. But that's one thing. And then, as Corey said, the Luke Skywalker looking to... It starts off with him basically going to the Senate, which is very different. The Senate itself is very different than how it's portrayed in the prequels. Him going to the Senate and trying to get approval to basically restart the Jedi Order, which, although there are some... there is some concern because the galaxy has just been terrorized by both the reborn Palpatine, who many people basically see as a dark Jedi, and Jorah Sabaoth, who is the clone of a Jedi. There are a few people who are a little concerned, and Luke himself is pretty concerned too. But he's like, we'll figure it out.
And then he proceeds to ignore every hint of anything related to the dark side that comes up in the next 3 books. Pro tip.
He's like, Gantoris is like talking about the Dark Man. I'm just like, Luke, you should be asking about that. He's like, let's go settle ourselves in this fucking ancient jungle world.
Yeah, this is clearly a guy who who is trying to kill Luke, who is having premonitions of what Luke should recognize as being some sort of dark side intuition. And like, if I'm Luke, I just say, hey, you know what? Maybe not. He's just clearly, Luke is the worst judge of character in this.
You know what, bud? Nah.
We're going to go hang out on Yavin with some dark side ghosts, and that's where we're going to have our academy.
Also, what the hell happened to Cam Solusar? He's mentioned at the end, but like if I'm getting Jedi, like I'm just gonna probably pick Cam up first because like he's probably more of a Jedi than Luke, really, and he's like guaranteed to say yes. So
yeah, like he knows so many people who are better options to start with.
Yeah,
and then maybe like when you have Corin and Cam helping you set up on Yavin, then you can all bring some people together, and it's not just you and these people who have like Streen's fine. No red flags with
Jedi Prince
Streen.
Ken.
Okay, well, that isn't he dead?
I don't think he dies.
Does he not die? Did I make up him dying?
No, I don't think so. I think they just kind of leave him at the end.
I always kind of conflate him with Dev. So.
Oh yeah, Jedi Prince Dev, yeah.
And fun fact for everyone, Dev, his name sounds like dead, which he is. So,
speaking of dead, we get a character called Dak in this, and every time I read his name, I just thought of Dak, like Luke's gunner in Empire Strikes Back, and in not Shadows of the Empire, in Rogue Squadron for the N64, one of the cheat codes was Dead Dak.
Huh.
And I can't remember what that one did. I think it unlocked all ships. Maybe it was, I don't know. But there was a code called Dead Dak, because I remember my dad he'd come home from work, and like this is before we had internet at home, so he would print off like GameCheats.com, like all the cheats for like Rogue Squadron or whatever game we were playing. Like usually half of them would just be complete bullshit, but I still remember the ones for N64. There was like Farm Boy, which gave you the Millennium Falcon. There was Dead Dak. There was Chicken Walker, which lets you play a level as an ATST, which probably should have just been like something they advertised in the game because it's pretty cool. Yeah. Sorry, a bit of a rant there.
And we've been doing such a good job staying on topic for the previous 40 minutes of this podcast.
Oh, geez, that long already. Yikes.
Well, 20 minutes of news, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of talking about its importance within Star Trek.
You had gas at the beginning, which really delayed things, if I remember.
You're fired.
He's a gentleman. I mean, gentleman, he's gassy. I just said he's a gentleman. I'm going to say gentleman, he's gassy. Anyway, one thing I really like about this book is the Coruscant stuff. I kind of just like Leia, like learning about Leia as a politician, kind of like just during ordinary times. But like I wouldn't have minded a story or a short story just about like, you know, something like that without, you know, action focused. Yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool seeing like how our day-to-day works and stuff.
That has to be one of the most common B plots in all Star Wars books. It's Leia dealing with something political.
Mm-hmm. It's not even anything like in this one. It's just like vaguely political, except for the meeting with the representative from Karita. A lot of Karita ties in this. I hope nothing bad happens to Karita because
I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
He threw that drink in Mon Mothma's face. That'll be it.
I'm sure it was just a drink.
Yeah, she'll be fine. Karita will be fine. Yeah, it'll all be fine.
Yeah. Speaking of Coruscant, it's kind of cool that we see the construction droids from the X-Wing. The X-Wing novels. I don't know. Like I like all of that. It's cool that like Coruscant is actually, you know, having to recover from it. I like how we find that like ancient, that's not ancient, but the hidden Imperial like information center. Yeah, I don't know. Like they talk about them salvaging ships up there, and like they talk about the Coruscant shipyards and stuff. And I don't know, just think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that the Cretans were not human.
So did I. I was a little
yeah,
because they. It seems like they're basically humans, just like stockier, maybe.
I
I don't
don't.
know.
It almost describes them as insectoid, doesn't it? Not like super insecty, but
Maybe I'm just
kind of
thinking of.
insecty. But I always thought they were just like straight up humans.
Well, I assume that too, but I guess I just thought that because why would they have a military academy on a planet that's not like humanocentric? And plus, isn't Krita in the core?
Yeah.
So I kind of I assume that most core planets are human because, or that's basically how they usually are. Corellia and Alderaan and whatnot.
Yeah, that's usually the most prominent species, but then there's a few others that aren't fully human or aren't human at all, or originally weren't human.
Even Corellia, I guess.
Yeah. It's like Duro is close by. Then there's Alderaan is Kilix initially. Before they just put humans everywhere though. But yeah. So we learn a few things about how Jedi were seen at this point. Where there's a big emphasis on the fact that Jedi are like hereditary, like force sensitivity is a hereditary trait.
It's weird.
Which we kind of know from the prequels, like it just pops up in anyone, but in this period especially, it just goes really heavy on like if your parents are Jedi, you're gonna be a Jedi. If you have one parent Jedi, you're gonna be a Jedi. Like, and that kind of sticks with everything throughout Star Wars, but like there's more emphasis on force sensitivity popping up in a family. But then it does seem like
Saba and the other.
But like it's super common in all parts of all periods of Star Wars lore to have two parents who are Jedi have a Jedi kid, but the emphasis on the fact that your ancestry is how you find out how much force sensitivity you have. It almost treats it like, once again, to bring back the real topic of this podcast, Harry Potter, where your wizarding ancestry leads into your force ancestry.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's a lot that's like just radically different from the prequels because we didn't know how Jedi would work or how any that stuff would work, and this is probably one of the things that doesn't. I would say it doesn't hold up as well, like or as coherently, but I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah, like every Jedi we find in the New Jedi Order is like a descendant of a previous Jedi. So Anakin's problem, it really just highlights the fact that Anakin just needed to tell Obi-Wan, hey. And there was actually a really good line in one of the Clone Wars episodes, but I won't spoil that.
Let me light his pipe, Obi-Wan. That one.
Tell Padme I say hello. Like, the more we find out about other Star Wars lore outside of the movies, the more it just seems like just fucking tell Obi-Wan and everything will be fine.
Yeah. Well, wasn't Kiri-Mundi, was he the one that was allowed to procreate?
Yeah, I think it's either him. No, it's him, not Plo Koon. Or Kit
You
Fisk.
see a lot of like Syrian, isn't that what they're called?
Yes.
You'd see a lot of them running around because if it was passed on, it's like in 20 years, the Jedi Order is just a bunch of long boys.
Like Corrin, his grandfather's Nisha. Yeah. Kyle Katarn, Morgan. Yeah. Then Cam Salazar, his dad was a Jedi Knight and he raised him and trained him. Like they're all Luke, obviously from Vader. That's probably where it all comes from. But then that's because people at that point didn't realize that it was such a big part of the story that Anakin had these kids in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. I imagine like played out to its natural conclusion, it would just be the Jedi Order it would be overtaken by Jedi, which naturally give birth to a lot of babies, like Barabels. It would just be like there's that arc in Fate of the Jedi where there's just like a Barabel fuck dungeon in the bottom of the Jedi temple.
Were all of those Saba's kids, or was I know Tessar was Saba's offspring.
Yeah, they were like Tessar's kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm pretty sure anyway. I'm pretty sure they're Tessar's
I think they were
kids.
I wasn't sure if it was like Tessar was Saba's kid, and then the rest were like Tessar's girlfriends, mates. It's been a while.
I'm pretty sure that the kids are Tessar's because, yeah, and then
Hera,
so they're like Saba's grandchild.
Hera's the only one that survives of them through the Fallen War, right? There's 2 other ones.
And
they die on the
Mercury mission? Of the that like fighter squadron, like you mean the Barabel like fighting group they have?
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think there's like 3 of them in that den that are like. It's been a while since I've read this part of Fate of the Jedi and NJ, but I think there's like 3 or 4 of them in the den, and there's just like eggs everywhere.
Yeah. Speaking of fuck dungeons, we'll get there. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there's another comment by Luke just in this early part when he's talking about setting up the Jedi Order, and Leia's talking about why Jason, Jaina, and Anakin are elsewhere. And Leia's explaining the reasons they're gone is during their first 2 years, Luke said, Jedi children were their most vulnerable. Any contact with the dark side could warp their minds and abilities for life. It's like Anakin was 3 inches away from Palpatine. Trying to possess him and going all like super dark side force ghost thingy.
Yeah, I honestly just think Leia just like wanted to get fucked up on the weekends.
She clearly does. Like Jaina and Jason are back for like 15 minutes and Jaina cries once or something, and like, oh, what the fuck's wrong with this one?
Like as an actual parent, like I've got fucking no sympathy for Leia. She doesn't do anything. She's like, time to bathe the kid. Like, let the robot do it. That sounds smart. Let the thing made out of electricity and wires and shit bathe the children. Bruh.
Yeah, she's got like absolutely no sympathy for the fact that Jaina and Jason are in this completely alien environment to them. They barely know Leia. And then Jaina just wants to put some damn bubble bath in. It's like, no, we do that later here.
Like, okay, you never had kids here, so. But I gotta say, I think that they really missed out on an opportunity in later books to touch on this kind of motherly connection that the kids have with Winter. Because like they see Winter as their mother, basically. I think it would have been interesting, thinking back, if in Legacy of the Force, if Jason had killed Winter. I think that would have been interesting.
Instead of Mara?
Yeah, or in addition to
I don't think he
Mara.
needs to do both. I think he gets one.
Okay, that's fair.
Jason gets one major character murder. He already killed Pelion by proxy of Tahiri. Like,
killed Kyle.
Let's not have Jason wipe out the entire cast of characters in Star Wars. Even though very little happened afterwards.
That could have brought Tycho in as well. Plus Winter's I think she's a well-liked character. I mean, she's a Timothy Zahn character.
So you just wanted Jason to kill all of Timothy Zahn's characters. Got it.
Mara. Yeah.
Mara, Winter.
Another Thrawn clone.
Yeah. Thrawn clone walks in. Jason Solo. It's time to...
Talon card for some reason. But yeah, I don't know. I just... Like, Winter's always kind of in the background from this point on. And I think she deserved better based on, like, how important she actually is to the Solo family. And in the Thrawn trilogy, they treat Winter basically like a member of the family.
Yeah. Well, forget even just her importance to the Solo family, her importance to the galaxy. She's for sure. Like the best intelligence operative on either side of the war. And there's like, hey, Winter, you're on babysitting duty for 13 years now. Mm-hmm. Then that's it. That's all we need from you. Have a nice life. Bye.
And you know what else? In Legacy of the Force, like there is a major plot about the Solos being bad parents, because even Jason and Jaina have that conversation, and I think Jaina thinks about it later as well, but like the Solo family being absent is a major plot. So I don't know, I just think Winter had a lot of potential of a character, and I would have liked to see But I mean, and she marries Tycho later on, so you can bring Tycho in as well. Yeah.
Oh well, lost opportunity there.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a note for that page 148. About like Leia's complaining that she's doing this all by herself when Winter is literally still there, or I think Winter was still there, but she also only has Jaina and Jason. She's getting 3PO to do all the work, and Winter was literally left 100% alone with Jaina, Jason, and Anakin.
And Anakin.
Like, come on.
Yeah. And they were probably making her do some dumb shit with her memory, like naming off all the droids that have ever walked through the Mos Eisley Cantina and got kicked out by the bartender. Like, just because she can.
It's bad enough we've been practically non-existent as parents for the first 2 years of their lives, but he can't even spare time to greet Jason and Jaina when they finally come home.
Yeah. Like, she's giving Han so little credit.
Yeah, I think, well, part of it is just, in the book does go there, is that she's trying to do whatever she can to rationalize the fact that Han is not dead, which, just go after him.
Yeah.
Send someone after him.
Speaking of Han, one thing that I picked up on is Luke says it was only the love of Han and Leia that got him through his ordeal of being basically the new Darth Vader. Like, does he not remember how Han was acting in Dark Empire? He's like, Han like attacks Luke. Luke's like choking him, even when like Luke does his like trick to help them escape Biss. He's like, I still don't trust that guy.
Yeah,
like,
these are all just details. It's fine.
Yeah, I just think Luke's being very charitable to Han.
Yeah. And another Dark Empire reference that I wrote down here is when Lando shows up. So Han, as we met, I don't even know if we mentioned, but he's going to Kessel and he got shot down, so he's trapped there. And Lando ends up going to Coruscant during the bits where Jason and Jaina are coming back. So Lando is between jobs. He lost Nikolon. He has nothing else going on right now, and Leia offers him, well, just get your commission back. You and Wedge made a great team on Calamari. So we do get that.
I didn't even pick up on that. That is a nice reference.
The World Devastators, and
even though like he didn't do a good job.
No, R2 did a great job.
Yeah, like all Lando did was like lose 2 Star Destroyers.
Hey, Lando, remember that Star Destroyer fleet we had? It was great.
Should be fucking useful now, bud. I do like that. Speaking of lost Star Destroyers, I like Leia's like, I've got to call the Ugnaught Commission about scrap rights for all the ships, all the dead ships in orbit.
Yeah.
I was like, that's something fun that, like, I don't know, kind of, again, just little things like that help make the references to previous works more than just lip service, I guess. Because it's consistent, which I like.
So Han is on Kessel. He wakes up. He's in a cell, and he gets brought to talk to my duel.
My duel.
My Skinix.
Hey, let's be careful. But Morth Duel's such an asshole.
He's the worst.
Yeah. So I'll lay it out. Basically, Morth Duel he's taking control of this mining facility on Kessel, which, by the way, slight difference that some of you might know, but some of you won't. In canon, Kessel's a full planet. In Legends, it's more like a planetoid or like a very, big very large asteroid. It's like doesn't have atmosphere. They're basically always pumping oxygen to try to make a fake atmosphere, like kind of mild terraforming. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. But anyway, we also get more Kessel in Fate of the Jedi too, when they go and like fly through. Anyway, but so Morth Duel is mad at Han because Han dumped a load of spice that was supposed to be delivered to Jabba the Hutt because he's being
the famous episode 4 dumped spice.
That's right. Because he was being chased by a couple of Star Destroyers. And then Jabba ended up punishing Morth Duel because he had already paid for the spice. But why were those Star Destroyers chasing Han? Because Morth Duel tipped off the Imperials. So it's like you're mad at Han because your plan was successful. Like,
yeah, well, he's also upset that Han is still alive and thinks Han knows that he's the one that did it, and is more just afraid of getting caught in that. And he's kind of rationalizing that to Thrawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's got his first hand or right hand man Skinixnix.
Skinksnicks?
Skinixnix. Whatever.
Skinksnicks?
He dies. I don't care. He gets stabbed by a crack spider. So
isn't he in aren't they both in Wedge's Gamble?
they're.
Because aren't they both
I
in
think
Wedge's
Duel
Gamble?
gets mentioned. I don't know if Skinksnix gets mentioned.
Because that was one thing. Han, I guess there might have been an issue with communication, but Han is kind of surprised, isn't he, when Duel's in charge? But like, they should already know this because of Rogue Squadron working with. Anyway, small detail, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Duel is disgusting for every possible reason. He proves himself here to be like just everyone knows he's in the wrong. Even the people on his side know he's just being like petty. He's afraid of a New Republic task force coming to attack them. And Han's like, yeah, there wasn't going to be one, but now you've attacked me. There's going to be one.
Yeah.
And then he does have like there's two other things that I just want to get out of the way right now because I don't want to talk about them in depth. He has what is essentially or what is just a rape dungeon.
Yeah.
And then his kids from the rape dungeon he puts to use working on the spice.
It's like spice processing.
And then he murders the kids when they're starting to get old enough to take his place. So
yeah, and I think we're both of the agreement that like Star Wars is better when it doesn't. Like Star Wars doesn't need to have rape or sexual assault in it. There's another instance of that in one of the Abelpina. I think I sent this one to you, right? About Chronal Black Hole, basically.
I think so, yeah. Like
raping his daughter and stuff. Like it's just Star Wars is like, in my opinion, it's you just don't. It's not a proper universe to deal with that kind of issues, in my opinion.
And these aren't authors that are good at dealing with them.
Right. And we also get it very... Another story that does this is... I think it's... What is it? Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina, where there's like some stuff with Leia when she's in Jabba's. It's just I don't think it's a good medium, and it's never done with like the appropriate... It's not handled in an appropriate way, really. And it's not here. Like this book is too lighthearted to deal with an issue like that. Yes, people die and stuff, but it's like people are killed by spiders. It's just like, to me, it's like the same in New Jedi Order when Anakin dies and Han goes into like a deep depressive like alcoholic spiral, and it like, or sorry, when Chewie dies and takes it out on his son. It's just really, really dark, and it's such a kind of tone shift that it's very it's just weird.
I don't know. I think that was handled well enough that it doesn't bother me that it was there. I think the way that like Duel stuff here is handled is just not fantastic. And then later on you get like more references to like Leia when she was Jabba's prisoner. It's like, at least then I just had to sit there and be pretty. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
No one's...
Yeah.
This is really poorly. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in agreement on this, I think. So we'll just mention it. And I mean, it's used to... And it is essentially just... That whole scene is meant to show that I almost said Skinksnicks again, that Morth Duel's a bad guy or that he's gross and stuff. And it does do that, but it just doesn't do it properly.
Yeah, and we get enough of that when he's like eating the other bugs, and they're like, the terror makes them taste better, which seems like a horrible evolutionary trait to get.
Yeah, true.
Because usually it's the reverse. You don't want to evolve tasting better.
Yes.
You try to evolve tasting as bad as possible, especially if you're terrified. You really want, that's going to bring out the bad tastes. But, you know.
Yeah.
So
Morph Duel sucks. What else does he do that's sucky though? Is there anything else?
I think we just got the
he's
major...
irrational. He's gross, and he's just like there's a very clear out for Duel, because he's kind of put in the situation where he doesn't realize that Han is officially acting for the New Republic, so he shoots him down. They could have gotten out of that by just, it was a misunderstanding. Han didn't die, Chewie didn't die. Just let him go. Like, Han, I don't think is a particularly vindictive person.
Not for stuff done to him. If it had been done to like Leia or the kids, he probably would have been, let's go shoot them. But because it was just him and Chewie, like he even basically said, like,
just fix the Falcon, let us go, and like we can have a conversation. But it's like, let's just fucking kill them.
Yeah. And at that point, like, Duel has to know there's going to be more New Republic people coming. But the thing that really, really gets me about this is that Luke and Lando show up late. The way that Han and Kip get out on their own. We'll have to talk about Kip here, but this kind of connects well. Where Luke and Lando come to Kessel when Leia's worried about Han, and they pose as like Lando's an investor and Luke's his advisor. They want to invest in the mining operation, and they have 500,000 credits, which to me doesn't seem like a huge amount to invest in a planetary mining operation for a galaxy-wide drug ring, but whatever. And like wants to be like equal partners, and then Duel is really drooling all over them. But these are, and then they do something really stupid where like, we got you because they saw the Falcon, just go back. And anyways,
they're the most famous people in the entire fucking galaxy.
Yeah, like, how do you this is so dumb,
especially for Morth Duel,
who knows Han.
Yeah, he should 100% know who Lando is, like, at the very least.
Like, but they run in the same kind of circles. But then Luke is also super famous, and you fucking know Luke was wearing his stupid Jedi robe holding his lightsaber the whole time.
Don't worry about it.
Like, Luke is a guy who goes and recruits Streen and Gantoris, goes back to Coruscant, tells Leia, hey, we'll go get Han. And then Leia's like, what about those two? And Luke's like, you think of everything, don't you? Like, this is the whole point of your life for the last 6 months, and you've forgotten it.
Yeah.
Fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Luke does not impress me in this book.
No, I mean, he's such a dick. He's like it's hard for Streen to leave his, like, Streen's a damaged character. He's like, he doesn't like being around people. What's Luke do? He invites him to Coruscant and then just leaves. That's like if like your friend invites you over to your house like after school and like junior high, and then like goes out with like his mom, and you're just left to hang out like in his house.
Yeah.
But also you're being shouted at like all the time.
Well, the Streen scene. So we'll screw talking about it in order. But the Streen scene, I didn't even take it as Streen really agreeing to come and become a Jedi. Luke just asked Luke, like, if you can tell me how to get in tune with it, can you tell me how to shut them out as well? And Luke says, that I can teach you. And it kind of cuts away. It's like, okay, is Streen just going to chill there? But like, no, Streen's coming too.
Yeah, I feel like Luke probably could have just like covered that shit on the drive back to Coruscant.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, just put your fingers in your ears. But yeah.
Well, how strong does Streen really have to be that he's just like passively without any training? Like, we never really get much of Streen in the future, but it seems like that would be a particularly good skill for him. Like maybe he's just overly sensitive to it, but you kind of get the thing where like Corrin's family can't do telekinesis stuff. Like maybe Streen's the reverse of that, but with being an empath. And then it's just like, okay, Streen's the windy guy who shows up in the background of some pictures, but we never really worry about him too much.
Yeah. Yeah, there is that one picture where he's like kind of fondling Luke's shoulder at Mara's funeral.
Yeah. I actually really like that picture.
I hear you're single
most
now. Yeah. It is also pretty miraculous that like this is how Luke is finding people. He's like somebody on a shitty abandoned thing on Bespin sometimes finds or what is it can sense storms quicker than the machines.
Yeah.
It's like really like this is I mean I don't know. I guess it makes sense. There's some computer algorithms.
Yeah, so the way Luke finds them is he's got R2 and 3PO basically looking through records, finding anything that would be indicative of potential force sensitivity. And luckily, they also, with the construction droids you're talking about, they've get into a building and find some stuff that the Emperor used to track down Jedi and force sensitivity, which was a really, really lucky break considering what Luke wanted to do. So Luke finds out that you can just like touch someone's forehead and it's like a reflex where he'll just get kicked across the room depending on how strong they are. But he's also got this mechanical thing. So Luke goes to Eolshaw to get Gantoris. They've just been left on this kind of volcanic rock abandoned by the last few galactic governments. In exchange for Gantoris, despite literally every misgiving in the world, Gantoris and Streen are the least enthusiastic Jedi you'll ever meet.
Yeah, well, Gantoris is like not only not enthusiastic. Luke scans him with that, or actually that's Kippy scans him, but Gantoris is like kind of actively against it at the same time.
Yeah, Gantoris only goes because Luke like wins a bet essentially, and he promises to help the people of Eolshaw, and he technically does, but then that doesn't last. The Eolshaw people get transferred to Dantooine by Leia. She gets Wedge put on that job because it's more exciting than being in the Coruscant Undercity. But yeah, like Gantoris gets Luke to come hunt Moss with them. He tries to get Luke to like shove his hand in a hole. He's looking at some different timings for heat geysers.
Okay. No, sorry.
Luke puts his hand in the hole and there's a hot geyser comes out. What do you want from me?
Yeah, those sweaty pipes, they're trouble. Oh man, we're never gonna get invited to Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah, that'll be a very different episode if we do.
The coronavirus has given us the small pity of not being outright declined.
But someone would have to watch the episodes to decline us. Like,
that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's fine.
So yeah, Luke goes to get Gantoris and Streen. We already covered Streen a bit. Gantoris, he puts Luke to some challenges involving killing a giant lava demon worm. Eventually they agree to go to Coruscant, and then Luke ends up ditching them to go to Kessel. Lando, while Luke is off getting the other ones, he's helping Luke. He's going to hunt down a lead that 3PO and R2 found. It's a guy named Timmo or Timmo? I think it's just Timmo.
I think it's Timmo, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's two
It's
M's.
like the what's it called from The Last Jedi? What's that planet called again? The horses? Why am I drawing a blank right now?
Canto Bight?
Yeah, it's literally the Canto Bight of this book.
Yeah.
With races and all. It's kind of funny because for some reason when I first saw the Last Jedi trailer that had Canto Bight, I tweeted at Pablo Hidalgo and was like, "Hey, how come we couldn't get the blob racing instead of these horses?" He didn't respond, but
yeah, that's why he set his Twitter to private. I almost called it his Tinder. That's Charlie.
Yeah.
But yeah, the blob races are the one part of this book that you can basically skip because, especially if you know going in that it's that Timo is not a Jedi, which you can kind of safely assume there's going to be one red herring. So I don't hate that
Yeah.
it's there. It's just going
No,
in knowing that he's not a Jedi. I felt kind of like,
I actually think it's a pretty fun scene. Going to the planet, it's very like Star Warsy. There's lots of, it's like unique. We get lots of, I don't know. It's just interesting because it's like, for one thing, it's not human centric. There's lots of aliens there, and I also think the scene where Timo, or his name's Dak, right? When he gets caught,
yeah.
He's so goddamn dramatic about having to go back to his.
Can you kill me instead? Is that an
his
option?
woman. It's like his eyes like widened with terror, like the description of like going back to his mistress.
And this gets Lando rich again. That's where he gets his 100,000 or 500,000 credits, plus the extra million credits later that a private investigator who's very socially awkward hands him.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, if you're ever in a bar and Lando and fucking Han Solo ask you to sit down and have a drink with them,
you do it.
You do it. You do it every day. That's what it's.
Actually, no, I don't know if that's true because people who hang out with them tend to just die because we're expendable secondary characters. Yeah, that's how a scene would start that ends in our death. If we're hanging out with Lando and Han in a bar,
but
unless we're the squibs or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Oh no, I guess you're right. At the end of the book, unless they're trying to do a cliffhanger before.
There was a big. You're right. There was that big. That was at a restaurant though, with all the squibs. When they had that big shootout, is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess if you're a Rin, it's safe. That's the only way.
Yeah. Do any of the Rins die? Because what's the main one that like
Droma.
Droma, yeah.
Because I think Droma's fine the entire time.
So... Yeah, he like survives despite like everyone else dying.
So if you're Droma, you have a drink with Han and Lando. If you're not Droma, probably don't. That's my advice. Justin apparently disagrees.
Well, if it's the end of the book, you're fine.
You don't know it's the end of the book yet, though, because you're still getting.
You're giving them all the money, so you know that it's like the happy ending.
I don't buy it.
Okay,
I don't buy it.
That's fine. That's fine.
Don't buy it.
All right, you be a loser then. I don't care.
Yeah, that's what my channel's for.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But yeah, so Leia's convinced that Han, or trying to convince other people that she's convinced that Han is just fallen in with his gambling buddies on Kessel, apparently. And so Luke and Lando go and check it out. But while they're going to check it out, Han and his new friend Kip Durin, who is showing some Force abilities, hinting at them, who's actually trained by Vima Dabota.
Yeah, that's super unnecessary.
If she hadn't also disappeared again multiple times, I don't know how she got... Because she's hanging out in this area of space. Nalhada is not that far from...
I guess, yeah. I guess I didn't think about that.
She's just traipsing around Hutt space, gets into jail, gets out of jail, goes back to Nar Shaddaa.
Yeah.
So, it's fine. I thought it was fine.
She's just vibing.
Yeah. Because she just disappears after Dark Empire as well. She does what Vima Dabota does, what Vima Dabota wants.
Yeah, we see her one last time and she's just gone.
Yeah.
Crimson Empire, looking old AF.
But Han and Kip become fast friends in here. Han tells Kip everything. Kip's family, his parents were political figures who opposed Palpatine, got chucked into jail with their kids. Kip's brother gets taken and kind of brainwashed in the Imperial military. He'll show up a bit more. And then, is he dead already, or does he find him and then?
No, I'm pretty sure he dies.
He dies when Kip blows up the system.
Blows up Krita, I think, yeah.
So I wasn't sure. I forgot if it was his death or something that really sets Kip off, and they try to.
No,
but he sets off
because I remember they put him on like a communicator once the missiles, because they have like 20 minutes after the Resonance torpedo's been launched. Did you know in The Empire Strikes Back when Yoda says no, there is another, he's actually talking about Vima Dabota?
What if Yoda and Vima had like a thing at some point?
That'd be fucking nasty. Like in a good way though. They both look often sweaty, kind of little
She's
dirty.
just off screen every scene Yoda's in. That's why.
Yeah. That's why he was like so he kept Luke waiting to go into his hut. He was like playing dumb alien for a second. It was really good because like Vima had to do the walk of shame back. Cannot be seen with this wench.
Wench.
Yeah.
Why does Yoda say wench?
I was trying to think of what Yoda would say. I don't know.
We're 900 years from you reach. Hooking up with Vima, you will...
Lower your standards will be.
Like dust it is.
It was this or a hawk bat.
Yeah, we're never going to Star Wars Celebration. This is terrible. But yeah, so Kip, Dern, and Han are friends.
Wait till you hear about Luke's final Jedi challenge. Talk about that one was off screen.
No.
Luke was just pretending he didn't know about Vima, like when he hears about her from Leia. He's like, oh, really? Ugly old Jedi lady, you say? Sweating profusely.
But Luke is also, he's going to look for these people while Han and Kip are in jail. Luke sets Leia a task of finding a planet for, or just a place to have the Jedi Academy. And Leia's first thought is Dagobah.
Honestly, I get it. It's I do get it.
I don't.
I mean, Yoda was there.
Yeah, because he was hiding there, and now it's notable to them.
And she doesn't know that, to be fair, because Luke explains it to her in the Thrawn trilogy. Remember?
Mm-hmm. But like,
that's a good point.
You don't want a bunch of people on. It's going to be really hard to get anything established there.
Why not Dantooine?
Well, because now Gantoris's people are going there.
But it's like 60 people. You could have just fucking chucked them in a basement somewhere.
That's all you got room for.
Yeah.
They could just Luke ends up in the Jedi Enclave from KOTOR.
It's like Dantooine has like one rec center, and it's like, okay, the Jedi Academy can be in the basement, but
was Luke aware of the dark side presence from the Misasi temples? I forget if he found out about that before or after Gantoris and Kip both got possessed. So. But even after the first sign of that, maybe take your young Jedi trainees away and don't stay there, because like Gantoris literally gets blown up, right? And then
doesn't it catch fire?
Yeah, Exar Kun explodes him. And then like Kip starts dealing with him after that, I'm pretty sure. And Luke is well aware of it by this point because Gantoris is a crispy Hulk. And just I guess that's what happens.
Well, yeah, he also like fights Kip. And Kip's pretty good.
Isn't it Gantoris that he fights? Because Gantoris makes the like rainbow saber, the extendo saber.
I thought he fights Kip before Kip leaves, but
he might fight both. But I'm pretty sure he fights Gantoris because Gantoris tries to challenge him for leadership after he made his lightsaber. Exar Kun showed him how to make the lightsaber, and it was the one where he's fighting Luke and then he presses a button or something and it goes longer, and Luke is very surprised.
Whoa. It's like Luke's never read any of the Star Wars cross sections, all of which show a little extendo knob on every save.
I think his gains an extra foot or two.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Corran Horn gets one like that in NJO. Because he does that thing, remember, where he basically it can extend or turn off immediately, basically. Because when he's in that duel
Shido Shai on Ethor?
Yeah, with Shido Shai on Ethor, he basically makes him fall over and stabs him.
And it extends so far, it cuts through Ithor entirely, and that's why Corran blames himself for the next 20 years.
Yeah, that's why they had to be relocated. It's so funny how they talk about how sometimes Star Wars has a really difficult time relocating species. In the Thrawn trilogy, okay, just move them to Wayland. But I guess to be fair, after the NJO, there's a lot people looking for planets. But like the Ithorians, I remember like they just don't get one. They just like they're just getting messed up.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, the best planet that anyone found was Zonama Secot for that, but like the Ithorians would have loved Zonama Secot.
Yeah, they would have been perfect because they literally already have like spaceships with gardens in it, and this is like that, but even cooler.
If there was one species in the galaxy that deserves Zonama Secot, it was the Ithorians. But
yeah, I just like put them on pizzas. Ithorians, they look like mushrooms.
Okay, nice.
Cool.
Epic. Oh. But I have a note here, like there's a few points where Han in his conversations with Kip will just like reference the Falcon or something. And Kip's gotta be like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? What is he talking about? They get in the shuttle and Han's like, it's no Falcon, but it'll do. Like, why does he want to fly a bird?
That's true. You gotta feel a little bad for Kip too in this, because like he just gets fucked over so many times. Like Han, Kip, and Chewie just have a terrible couple weeks.
Yeah. No, this is the worst part. Is this is Kip's best week in years?
Yeah, you gotta feel bad for Kip. I mean, I also think. Do you think that they intended Kip to be a bigger character, or that Kevin J. Anderson intended Kip to be a bigger character? Like at the end, especially where Luke does his weird mind probe thing, and Kip's is like super powerful.
He's always one of the more prominent Jedi, so I don't know that he could have. I don't think he was intended to be much bigger than he was, because like if you were to list like all the Jedi Council members from the NJO, I think Kip and
Corran,
Corran and Kyle have the most name recognition aside from Luke and Mara, and then it's a decent jump for like
you
Cam
also get
Saba, and then a huge jump for like fucking Tristina Lobi and Octoramus.
You're missing somebody very important who we're going to meet soon. One of your favorite Jedi, I thought.
Silkel?
Yeah.
I'd put her in the
she's
Saba
one of the
tier.
more.
I think she's below Kip.
Yeah. Oh, definitely below Kip, Corran, and Kyle. But Kyle's is kind of unearned just because he's in some cool video games.
Yeah.
He doesn't do
anything in any books ever.
He gets stabbed by Jason. Yeah. When I was rereading Legacy of the Force, I was like, holy shit, Kyle's dead. Because like I was like, did this happen and I didn't remember? Because he gets stabbed like through the heart, basically.
Yeah, he's fine.
And I'm like, I was like, that's really cool. Like he actually, because Jason just kicks Kyle's ass in a fight, and I'm like, oh my god, like that's cool. But okay, he survived. I was like, how did I forget about that?
Is that the same fight that like Octoramus loses all of her limbs as well?
No.
Or is it Trisina? No, I think it's Octa. But like,
doesn't Octoramus lose her limbs to that torture guy?
I thought there was a fight.
There's a fight on Coruscant. It's on Coruscant that it's like an assassination attempt.
Yeah, but I thought it was the same fight that Kyle got fucked up. There was like 2 or 3 Jedi Masters. And
yeah, there is.
Like it seems like all of them die, but then only one does, if that.
Let's see. I just remember it's like an assassination. Undercity ambush. That's the Wikipedia. So it's Valen Horn, Kyle Katarn, casualties. Thin Mithric, Katarn's chest impaled. Is that not a casualty?
It makes Kyle a casualty, but it isn't Kyle's chest isn't a casualty. Valen Horn
Tristina Lobi's the one who's decapitated.
Oh, she's
by Lumaya.
Oh, remember? Yeah, okay, right.
You're thinking of is it the Solusars that are like
No, Cam and Tion get like super fucked up on Yavin. But
Okay, so I was thinking of Cam and Tion then. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's some raid that happens. Jaina's like off to the side for some reason. Cam and Tion just get like absolutely annihilated by the Galactic Alliance Guard. I'm pretty sure. And then Jaina comes out and deals with it. That's my vague recollection of that book. But yeah.
I'm kind of excited to read those books again.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
I really wanted to just read them on my own, but I don't have the
time. The Fate of the Jedi. Yes, you don't, I forget you don't do audiobooks, but Fate of the Jedi audiobooks are really good. Even Legacy of the Force audio. I know we've talked about this briefly, but the Legacy of the Force audiobooks are really good because they are abridged, but they're like abridged really, really well. Like they're like down to like 2/3 of the ordinary length, and like you don't miss very much.
So yeah. Lumaya kills Tracina. Jason kills Mara.
Yeah.
And Saba kills Kenth. That's the kill count in Legacy of the Force.
Well, that's in.
That's Fate of the Jedi. Never mind. I always.
And then that. Saba also murders Abeloth.
I'd say that's an even trade.
The way she murders Abeloth is really funny too, because I'm pretty sure she like rips Abeloth's head open. Like she like, I'm pretty sure she like grabs Abeloth's jaw and just like rips it off her head or something.
Saba, like as much as Kip is kind of the. I'm not surprised that Kip got as notable as he did, but like Saba, it's kind of funny just how prominent she becomes from how she gets introduced to.
That's just Troy Denning, though.
Yeah, but other authors do kind of run with it. Like she plays a decent role in NJO, and then a bigger role in Dark Nest with Troy, and then
really big role in Fate of the Jedi.
Yeah,
and I can't remember how much she doesn't like.
Well, I guess Troy Denning is basically the entire last bit of Legends.
That's why they call it the Denning verse, right? Oh wait, someone says Saba bites Abeloth's neck and tears it. Okay, I was mistaken.
Very different.
I just remember being very visceral, and it's like very surprising because I'm like, okay, they killed one forms or something. Clearly, there's got to be like Jedi across the galaxy ready to strike. No, that's just how Abeloth dies.
Well, she just gets basically like sent back to Force prison.
Yeah, but there was definitely going to be Abeloth 2 Electric Boogaloo series once they found the.
Well, in like 10,000 years or more, so it's fine.
I don't know because I think that they were going to have the series of Luke finding the Siri just got activated. I think they were going to have the series of Luke finding the Dagger of Mortis or whatever.
Yeah.
Which would have been cool. And then I think they would have somehow tried to deal with that. Maybe not though.
Well, they basically they talk about with Abeloth how it's like war makes her kind of get closer to coming out, and then because there's so much war and like the more she comes out, the shorter between her being able to come back. But I think you're missing the biggest detail from that fight, where she rips out Abeloth's neck, spits it off to the side, and then just says, "So uncivilized."
Tastes like chicken. Yeah, I remember there's a lot of shit thrown in the last 2 Fate of the Jedi books too, where it talks about like how once the ones are all dead, like that kind of fucked things up a bit too. Like, yeah. But we're so off topic. I don't even know how we got here.
So while Luke and Lando are going to rescue Han and Kip, who are doing fine getting out on their own, Leia gets a visit from Ambassador Fergan from Karita. And
real dickhead.
It's kind of hard to talk about everything because the stories diverge from each other, and then they don't really reconnect that much in this book, except for Luke, Lando, Han, and Kip. But Leia's dealing with the ambassador. They're trying to get Karita into the fold, and Fergan's like, well, it remains to be seen how long your rebellion's going to last. Like, okay, well, the Empire's kind of gone, and
like, you guys lasted 19 years. Like, we're like a fifth of the way there. Like, let's not get too key.
Yeah, it's actually 7 years, so they're over
so
a third of the way there.
Yeah,
yeah, like they'll be fine. Well, they won't be fine. We know that they won't be fine, but
yeah. We'll be fine, but also more realistically, no, we're not going
Good
to last
job,
much longer.
Jagged Fell, for taking over the galaxy.
So they last what, like 21 years as the New Republic.
I mean,
the GA lasts.
I wouldn't call the Galactic
100.
Alliance taking over the New Republic, because the GA was just the New Republic being more successful in taking in the rest of the galaxy. Because institutionally, weird, it's just the New Republic, but with some other autonomous regions within it.
The weird thing about the GA is like, and that I think is a little inconsistent, is the degree to which the Empire is actually a part of it. Because sometimes it talks about the Empire being fully within the GA. Like, for a while, they make Pelion is like the chief of the military. And then other times the GA and the Empire are treated as two separate entities.
Well, it's more of a confederation, and they do have differing amounts of autonomy within it, but I don't think it's that inconsistent with how it's institutionally structured, just how much agency they're given within it. Because like the Hapens are still within the Galactic Alliance, but the royal family is still as in charge as it's ever been. It's just they're in some way answerable to the GA, because it's more of a military alliance with some sort of like institutional.
It's just weird because the New Republic doesn't maintain sovereign or a semi-sovereign body like the Empire does. You know what I mean?
Well, it's kind of the closest real world comparison I can really think of would be the United Kingdom, where like there's still the Scottish Parliament, but there's not really an English Parliament, because that is just within the UK
that makes sense. That makes sense.
So what I'm saying is Scotland is the imperial remnant of the UK.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
But yeah, so Fergan goes. He's basically a dick to everyone the whole time, and then Leia's wondering why. Is that what that's about? My note there. But so they have this reception, and Fergan just says, "I'm only here to pay homage to Palpatine and go to the Imperial Palace and his home." And then
I do.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that gives me a chance to find what I'm looking for. So
I was gonna say, I don't know what they were thinking, to be honest. Like, Karita, it's like the imperial institution. The Empire is severely weakened now, but like, I don't know. I don't think it was reasonable for them to expect Karita to just join the New Republic. Yeah, I think it was a waste of time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think their point with it is that it is so important to the Empire, and then just highlighting that like the Empire is gone, like there is no Empire anymore. It's just the Warlord, because this is post-Dark Empire, when it's all as splintered as it's ever going to be.
Just in the core, really.
Yeah, Dala hasn't even come back to reunite the Warlords and fuck with the Moff Council to the extent that it still exists. Like the Pentastar alignment's still there, but it's nothing. There's still just those little bits in the northeastern corner where Zinj used to be, that is now where like something resembling the Moff Council kind of exists.
Oh, really?
And like the territory before Dal unites the Warlords and Pelion brings in the Pentastar alignment is just a little bit of they're essentially gone.
Yeah, well, Pelion moves them out of the core to like the outer rim, and
that's because Pelion takes over the Pentastar alignment. That's what that territory becomes, because the core is just military forces. Really, they're not a government. Because there's just not much going on there. True. It's like
I guess they just make it. Yeah.
It's basically the remnants of Crimson Empire that are left, and that's is it Oslampek? No, it's
the Crimson Empire hasn't been destroyed yet.
Yeah, but like that's the territory that's left for the Empire. Oh, yeah. That's basically what the Empire would mean at this point.
Right.
And so Karita is clearly not going to go to that. It's not until like Dala pulls in the Warlords and kind of combines that with what's left of Karnor's territory that they're anything really. So I think it makes sense that Leia, they're trying to make a push for Karita to be like, just fucking accept that we need to move on with the galaxy. Join, we'll find some way to work out having you included. But clearly Karita's not ready for that. And he chucks his wine in Mon Mothma's face, which turns out to have little
Yeah.
Were they robots or were they microbes?
I can't remember. Let's not spoil it, buddy.
Oh, I guess that doesn't actually happen in this
Kip
movie.
Duron did nothing wrong. That's all I'm saying. Did nothing wrong. When Kip Duron's flying around in the I almost said Galaxy Gun. Uh, when he's flying around in the World Devastator. No, but I like when I see him targeting the Empire, I'm just like, just do it. Like, just fucking get it over with.
Yeah.
But that's why I wouldn't be a Jedi.
Well, Kip Duran becomes a Jedi Master, so.
Pretty edgy one too.
But so yeah, Han and Kip, they end up going on
And Chewie.
and Chewie, Han, Kip, Chewie, and what's the other guy's name? They get a random other guy who you just know is going to die immediately when they're going into the mines.
I can't even remember.
I actually missed his death, and I was like, "Oh, where'd he go?" And then I went back a few pages, and oh, there he is. He got stabbed by a spider, but it was biological. Okay, thank you, Jason. But they have this new vein that Duel and their whole organization is trying to mine, but people keep going missing. They're not sure why, so they're gonna go check it out. Han, Kip, and Chewie volunteer. They go with Skink Snicks and their other buddy, whose name I forget.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how they're able to make their break for it, where it's really weird because they're on the mining cart. Skink Snicks and the other guy get like stabbed by the spider. Han, Chewie, and the spider is what makes all the glitter stim.
Mm-hmm.
And Han, Chewie, and Kip start going back to the base, get intercepted by people, head back to the spider, and then they leave. They're able to jack the other shuttle.
Mm-hmm.
So then they fly into the maw at real speed or in real space.
I guess the maw is not very big.
Yeah, it's like apparently literally right next to Kessel without posing a threat to Kessel, and they can fly there through the maw entirely to the maw installation.
Yeah. Yeah. The maw's weird too because they try to fit so much. I'm trying to see if there's a good map of it online because they do try to fit like a lot of stuff into this space because they've got like Sinkhole Station as well too and Abeloth's planet. Just like kind of weird. Like it is a cool area of space, but it is. I don't know. Like I do find some inconsistencies when I go back and read it. I guess.
Yeah, that was the kind of the weirdest part of the book to me, but then I just started ignoring the travel speeds and just went with it.
Yeah.
They end up. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to continue with the plot. So.
Oh, I was just gonna say one thing that I picked up on when I was reading this, I guess, is there's a moment where Kip looks at the moon around the maw and he gets like this, like he says he feels like nervous or something. And I guess it's because there's a garrison there. But
it's
there's
actually
also
Abeloth.
Well, there is a scene there's actually I think a really good, very Lovecraftian scene sort of in Fate of the Jedi when Alana is looking up at the moon, although it's like partially destroyed, I think. She's like looking up at the moon and she kind of gets the same feeling. And like but it is Abeloth for her. It's not actually the moon where Abeloth is. It's like in the maw. But I don't know, just kind of reminded me of that, I guess. I don't know if anyone else remembers that scene because they have a whole. For those who haven't read Fate of the Jedi, they go back to Kessel, and Lando actually owns it at this point, kind of like he says he wanted to. I don't remember what they're doing there. I think there's like something going on, or the planet is like being shook apart or something. Anyway, they get like all fighter pilots and they fly through there, and the spiders there and stuff. But that's like ends up being close to the maw, so there's some shenanigans going on.
Was the So Abeloth, the installation Abeloth was on, there was a few of them, right? Similar to the
So
Maw installation that the Empire was using.
so Abeloth is like on a planet surrounded by black holes, which is being like held shut by like Sinkhole Station, which is like a smaller center point, from what I remember.
Right. And then like the Maw installation, the Imperial one is like closer to the outer sides of it, which there's still
I
more black
guess.
holes around.
Yeah, like it seems like there's a few of these because I think they describe like where Abeloth is kind of in the middle, but it's like a point where like it seems like they find somewhere where all of the gravity from the black holes is like pulling equally. But I mean, I think the gravitational effects of black holes in this story are maybe a little under considered.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they end up at the Maw installation. They're captured by Dala's forces, who Dala has been trapped here for over a decade now because she's unaware of what happened at Yavin. She knew the Death Star was being made. They end up interrogating Han, but aside from setting forth Dala's plan to attack the galaxy with 4 Star Destroyers, correction, 3 Star Destroyers, the main thing that really happens here is that aside from getting captured and finding out that there's the Sun Crusher, which they're going to steal, they meet Kui Shush. Zux?
They call
Shux?
it Qui Jukes in the
Jukes?
novelization, but they also call it Palpatine. So
I'll take Jukes. I won't take Palpatine.
Yeah.
So,
Coruscant.
So Qui Jukes is apparently the Orson Krennic of Legends, where she's responsible for a lot of the design of the super weapons, so the Death Star, World Devastator. She's involved in those teams at least. And the Sun Crusher is kind of her major project now, where she was captured by Tarkin, raised to be this super smart scientist person, and
I quite like that scene or the description of how Tarkin like. So what I forget what exactly the name of her alien race is, but basically they have a lot of potential as children. So what Tarkin does is he takes a bunch of children from the planet 10, I think, from different cities. Basically, he puts them in this like big testing facility, and he parks his Victory Star Destroyer over the planet. And as people drop out, because he's like feeding them full of knowledge, like people are literally dying from overworking and whatnot, and like having seizures and stuff. And if the person drops out, he bombards their city from orbit. Like he's very serious about which I liked. I mean, Qui Jukes is interesting because I think when you first like, she's full of shit for one, because she says that she doesn't understand what she pretends that she doesn't know what she's doing. Like, she designed the Death Star, but she thinks that it's for taking apart planets, yet it's filled with weapons, like not just the super laser, but also turbo lasers and stuff.
Well, that also matches up with like the X-wing thing where they got the museum, and it's the planet cracking mining tool that the benevolent emperor sacrifices himself to keep out of the hands of the rebels. So, but the fact that well, even just how they get her to cooperate is bombarding all of her planet's cities if they don't cooperate. So like,
that's kind of what I mean. Like it kind of suggests later that she knows she's kind of lying to herself, but then you understand how she was raised and like where she's never had a choice basically. And I don't know, you do feel more, you feel kind of bad for her. And then like when Han confronts her about the Sun Crusher, she's kind of admits to herself that the Sun Crusher has no practical application really. Like she can't even falsely justify it to herself.
She comes up a decent bit in the future where she's romantically involved with Wedge for a while before Sile.
Isn't she killed at some point?
I don't think she gets killed.
Yeah, maybe not.
For some reason, I thought she might have been involved in Alpha Blue, but that doesn't make sense. That's not true.
Yeah. Okay. Who am I thinking of?
She might. I
No,
don't
I
remember
just
her
checked. I
getting
just checked the
killed.
wiki, and she doesn't.
I thought she like just
I don't
retires
think
and
unless.
no, because there's something that happens to her where she just gets like super fucked up somehow, and then
Yeah, doesn't her brain get messed up or something?
yeah,
Am
and
I?
then I think she just retires,
Because
or
I think I
Star
think the
Wars
Wikipedia
retires.
page is incomplete because I'm reading it. Doesn't she get like? I can't remember. I thought she got like mind fucked somehow.
She does,
Let's chat now.
but I don't remember how.
Kip wipes her mind. No, she's not killed. Kip wipes her mind.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because like I'm reading the Wikipedia page and whatever.
But yeah, so this is where we meet Dala. She starts forming her plan to invade the galaxy. And we hear a bit about her background, where she was like she'd make fake accounts to make suggestions and stuff, where she'd like pose as a male because as a woman she wasn't listened to. She was passed over for other promotions. She does really well in simulations, but she's never actually been in a real combat situation, is what we kind of find out.
Yeah.
But Tarkin notices what she's doing and kind of takes her on as he's the one that is responsible for promoting her. He's also the one that sends her into the Maw to lead these weapons installations or the weapons development, which apparently Palpatine doesn't even know about.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't think though that Tarkin is doing that for any like he's not doing that to betray Palpatine or anything. I don't think. I think it's just because I think it just says he wants to take credit for it, right?
Yeah. Because like Palpatine's obviously aware of the Death Star. Like it doesn't seem like Tarkin's trying to hide what is supposed to be the result. Like what at this point Kevin Anderson is intending to be the results of the Maw installation. Because from this, it's supposed to be that the Death Star came from this because they have the Death Star prototype. Unless it's that the Death Star prototype got relocated there, but it didn't have a hyperdrive at that point.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem to be what Kevin Anderson was going for.
No, I don't think so.
But yeah, so. Was Bevel mentioned?
Sorry, go ahead.
Was Bevel mentioned in the book, or he gets added?
Yeah,
later?
because it talks about how she studied under Bevel and Lisk. Quijoux did. So. I do like too how I remember the Imperial Sourcebook reference. They quote an exact text from the Tarkin Doctrine speech, and I was like, oh, that was pretty cool because it's straight out of the Imperial Sourcebook, which is like one of, if not the like oldest, really influential like Star Wars secondary sources. It was like 89, I think, and it introduced like interdictors, dreadnoughts, all that stuff.
Do you want to talk more about Dala now, or would you rather wait until next time?
I do want to talk a little bit about Dala now because there's a couple of things that we've talked about this briefly on other episodes, but there's two things I don't like about how they handle Dala. One, the relationship with Tarkin, I think, is unnecessary. They do the same thing with Isard and like some sort of implied relationship with Palpatine.
Yeah.
Another thing they do with women characters in Star Wars Legends, I always notice it, is whenever something frustrating happens, they're always crying or on the verge of tears. It happens with Leia all the time. And it doesn't fit Dala's character for her to be crying, even when or holding back tears when what is the Gorgon? Not the Gorgon that blows up. Is it the Basilisk? And you never see that with like Luke. Luke's a little bitch. Like if you've seen the original trilogy, you know this, but he's never like on the verge of crying when something happens. You know, it's just kind of a way that they, yeah, it's just lazy writing of a woman. And you see that a lot with Leia. I don't know if Mara, but definitely Leia, and with Dala at least once so far in this trilogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dala even says she doesn't really have any political goals in this, so it is kind of weird. Like, I do like that in Darksaber she ends up being the one to kind of bring the Empire back together, but it doesn't fit with. There's a big jump between what you get with Dala in Darksaber and what we get with Dala here, because in Darksaber is where you get more of like the cold hard killer, reuniting the Empire. You're all
She does so
wasting
kind of
resources.
reluctantly, though.
Yeah, but in this, it's like it feels very different.
You're
From like
right.
now,
She just wants to
she just
destroy
wants to
shit.
blow stuff up. It's very emotionally charged.
Yeah.
Whether that's anger or
It's frustration because she's been waiting so long.
Yeah,
for nothing.
But the way she approaches it in Darksaber is just so different.
Yeah.
Unless like it's been a while since I've read Darksaber, but it doesn't.
Me too.
She doesn't read the same way to me in those. And especially here, because it's like it's setting her up where she thinks she's super competent, but then she doesn't even know how to destroy a Sun Crusher. So how good she can really be?
The thing that literally no one can destroy.
Yeah.
I think we should have a more detailed discussion about the Sun.
Oh, I'm going to complain a lot about the Sun Crusher
today.
Not today. I don't have time today.
Yeah.
Because we are 2 hours deep in this, and I'm going to complain a lot about the Sun Crusher.
Yeah, regarding the Sun Crusher, despite how much you try to explain phase-shifted particles at, whatever, it's just, you can't make ships that can't be blown up. Because it's lame.
Don't.
Running through the Star Destroyer is cool, but, like, having a ship that can't be... It's just, like, yeah. You just know it's going to be handled in a BS way, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then why not just make more of them? It's a lot of the problems I have with the Zeiston, but even smaller and more overpowered.
Yeah.
The Sun Crusher is the only thing I dislike more than the Zeiston.
Really? Okay.
The reason that the Sun Crusher doesn't seem as bad, or may not seem as bad on the face of it, is because we only see one of them, but prototype. And it doesn't seem like it would have been that difficult to manufacture. The missiles certainly weren't.
No.
So the spammable small ship that can blow up anything and is unable to be killed would have been a thing. And in principle was a thing. It's just we don't see it. Whereas with the Zeiston, the first time we see it, there's 10 trillion of them.
I also don't like the World Devastator research being attributed to Quijuks.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's something that would have been happening at BIS. Like, away... Like, I always imagine when it comes to Dark Empire, Palpatine had this whole other kind of, like, setup. I feel like this would have been... Because it was kind of his next evolution of the Empire. So I always imagined him, having the research for, like, the Eclipse and the World Devastators and the Tide droids and the Shadow droids and all those things. I kind of imagine them being done on BIS, top secret. But that's not really important. I guess it is. The basic idea would just be that Quijuk sent it out on like one of those probes that they were occasionally putting out, and Palpatine somehow got his hands on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of hard to say like when certain things were set up on BIS, because then one of the things you really attribute as a BIS project is the Eclipse, and then as we know from vaunted lore source Empire War Forces of Corruption, that was actually built mostly at Kuat, then transferred over when Tiber Zahn boarded it. So,
Yeah, I almost don't consider that canon.
Well, you should, because it is.
I just don't think it fits well with...
No, it's canon. Everything fits perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you. No, it's perfect.
But
Lucius Malfoy ran a criminal underworld, and
Lucius Malfoy. For real though, do you think that the events of Force of Corruption fit well with everything else?
No.
Okay. It's not headcanon to me.
It was getting brought more into other stuff the further in we got. There are references to the Zahn Consortium. There's also a canon reference to the Zahn Consortium.
Oh, really? Probably one of the solo source books or something?
I'm not sure where. I don't think it was solo source book. It was one of the first novels that came out. Referenced it at some point.
Maybe like Tarkin or something. And
certain ships started to show up in other places. Like Dala's regular fleet, not irregular feet. Dala's regular fleet had some of the what are they called? Crusader gunships, I think it was.
Yeah, they did.
And there was a few things where they just started showing up in other places. But yeah, it was good. It was slowly coming in more.
Yeah, I think Tiber Zahn is fine. It's just the being built at Kuat makes no sense, and it being stolen. I think there's some stuff there's one source book or something that talks about the New Republic having run-ins with the Eclipse, perhaps before Dark Empire, but it being basically like a ghost ship. I can't remember.
We thought it was a ghost ship until it opened fire.
Yeah, basically.
No, that's a quote.
Oh,
From
what's
what
that from?
I don't know what it's from, but we used it for something for the mod.
Yeah, what was that? Also, Gus is crying. Can you take over for a few minutes?
Yep.
Because Kelsey's asleep. All right,
Sure.
I'll be back in 5.
All right, so we go from, like, when we're on Kessel, Han is basically the one filling them in on what's been going on in the galaxy for the last 10 years. So I just wrote in my notes that Dalla had just listened to Tapcaf, because it's basically everything we talked about up till now, where he tells them about I think he literally uses the words the truce at Bakura, or that's how the book describes it, and they, like, Dalla find out about Thrawn, finds out about Dark Empire, so she's the one that distributes that information to the rest of the base, but she leaves out the fact that they tortured Han to get it, or at least leaves it out when telling it to the scientists. I'm not sure if it would have been the exact same thing with everyone else, but at least quite, like, I'm not sure how they would have doctored the footage to make it look like he was fully cooperating and not being tortured in any way. So, but Dalla just resolves that she is going to leave and do whatever damage she can to the New Republic, because she says she's not, like, looking to reunite the Empire. She's not looking for any of that. She's not going to rejoin with other Imperial forces, which is ultimately what she ends up doing. She's just out to cause as much damage as possible, and she doesn't do a great job with that. Quad changes her mind. She decides to help Han, Chewie, and Kip break out, and so they steal the Sun Crusher. Sun Crusher flies through the bridge of the ship, but while they're doing this, Luke and Lando, they're going through everything we talked about on Kessel. We already talked about it a bit towards the beginning of the podcast, but they're posing as the investors. They asked to do an inspection of the ships on the garrison moon of Kessel, because there's it's a pretty reasonable fleet that Duel actually has, because there's at least 3 Carrack cruisers and some other assortment of fighters and other ships. It's, like, not a huge fleet, but it's bigger than Bakura had, which was 1 Carrack. So he's not doing too bad for himself. And it's kind of alluded to that this is why they think it's a reasonable thing to, like, go after him to join the New Republic, because that is a sizable force for what they are. You get some of the issues with scale that Star Wars often has with that. But no matter what paradigm you're in, a criminal moon of smugglers and spice runners having that situation is not bad. But yeah, so when they're investigating the Millennium Falcon, as soon as Luke and Lando figure out that is the Falcon, they just accuse him straight out of lying to them, and that just seems like a horrible way to play it, because you're surrounded by literally their entire military. You don't have access to the Lady Luck to leave. You don't know what they've done to the Falcon to modify it, if it's still going to work, especially with the Falcon being as unreliable as it is, without Han to look after it and Chewie to look after it. So they decide that they're just going to call Duel out. Duel runs off the ship, so they try to steal the Millennium Falcon and leave, but then they realize that the navicomputer isn't there, so they're just kind of stuck. And you get the exact same thing with flying the shuttle through the maw, where because there's no navicomputer, they're just literally flying at regular non-light speed travel speeds into the maw, and they're going to do the exact same thing, which just that is the part of the book that gets me the most. But whatever. Luckily for them, Han and Kip come out in the Sun Crusher at that point, so they're able to do a joint jump back, because the Sun Crusher has an navicomputer. They still have the hyperdrive in the Millennium Falcon, they just can't make their own calculations. So they're able to actually get home. Han finally sees his kids. There's not really much in there about the trip, and Luke just tests Kip afterwards. So that kind of does it for the major plot points. There are a few other points that Justin and I can talk about when he gets back. I think I hear movement.
I'm back now.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So I just quickly ran through the rest of the plots. So now we can just talk about whatever character or whatever points we want to.
Yeah, let me just check my notes. Sorry about that. Gus banged his head against the crib. Not gonna be a break child, I think, boys and girls. I wanted to mention earlier. I really like the scene where they go to the Cloud City ripoff. I don't know. There's like a nice kind of atmosphere to it, literally and from a literary perspective.
The Cloud City ripoff, like Streen's place, or
yeah.
Tibinopolis.
Yeah, and I like at the end when like he's leaving and he's all sad because he's he's made a kind of existence, not really like a happy one, but he's dealing with his gifts and his curse. But and then at the end he's leaving and all the birds are following him and like waving away.
All the rocks. Nice. Luke gets a hint of what's to come with his grandson.
Just like, yeah. Well, I like that.
Yeah,
that was good. Other than that, at one point I did have one. Every Star Wars book has to have one moment where I just roll my eyes with unnecessary references to the OT. Mm-hmm. This one was very, very light in that. But at one point, Kip says, "I know this sounds like some hokey religion." I was like, what?
Yeah, something we haven't talked like. There wasn't actually as many of those references as other books have, so like
I'll allow it.
Yeah. There was no Tapcaf that I remember.
No, there wasn't. No Tapcaf.
But one thing with the spice running and everything, where Han is like clearly just a drug dealer based on this, especially with how potent that drug is, there's just it's clearly a big moral issue for Han's character, and there's a Han and Lando are talking about it at the end when Lando is talking about establishing control of Kessel to do the spice mining, and it just feels like such a hand wave justification for me of like, spice has plenty of good uses too. You knew that, Han, or you wouldn't have been run spice yourself in the old days. It's like you were clearly running it as a drug for a drug lord, for his drug lord empire, for a bunch of other drug lords. Like, come on.
Yeah, and going back to, I mentioned this earlier, the scene with Boba Fett and Leia, where it's kind of like still Mormon Boba Fett. Like, I'm sorry, that's offensive probably to Mormons, but whereas it's very moral, and like Boba Fett used to have a very moral code, a very strict moral code, and that's one of the reasons why he hates Han, because he does do spice smuggling.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's fair because it is a pretty, I mean, it's pretty fucked up drug. Like Morth Duel like reads minds and shit with it.
Yeah.
Which, did you talk about that while I was gone?
No.
Yeah, I don't like that. I guess you could say it's enhancing his natural force abilities.
That's what I read it as.
Yeah, it's too Dune like for me. Like I just don't think it's like, we already have spice. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess they had been like trying to get him to do spice as like a food additive rather than a drug, but then George Lucas was like, "No, it's a drug." So
yeah, I love that the spice mines of Kessel was just like, it's just like where they get all their
literal
garlic.
Spice. Yeah. Yeah. The thyme fields of Typhera.
The thyme fields. That's good. I like that. That's good. Let's see if I had any other notes. We didn't talk. Skink Snacks died. The spider's pretty creepy. I will say I do like the scene where they're going into the tunnels. They do a good job of just making it seem like really awful, pitch black. You're basically on this like, I kind of imagine it like a roller coaster. Like you just get like thrown down You can't see. You're not really strapped in well. These rock walls on the other side of you, and there's a fucking crack spider down there.
Fucking crack spiders.
Yeah, it's a crack spider down there. He's like, you want to get high?
What comes in my web?
One thing I wanted to mention is those little glitter things. The little beings.
The glitter bugs?
Remember? Is that what they're...
No,
you know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Those little things that just fly by.
In which part?
When they're in the cave, there's like these creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think those are supposed to be?
I didn't really think about it.
You didn't think about it?
Yeah. It's like a cave firefly. I don't know.
But they like go through walls and shit.
Oh.
Nice. Let's see. What are they called? Chat, what are they called again?
Like maybe that's just the whole force
glowies
connection there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just because they're mentioned in Fate of the Jedi 2, but I can't remember if they're
bedlam spirits.
The crack spiders prey. I don't know. They just seem not quite like they seem like there's something going on there. You know?
I don't know.
Bogies, right? Yeah. Because like in Fate of the Jedi, the bogies like they do something. Oh wait, here we go. Han and right, because the bogies lead them to like this equipment that like is celestial made. So something going on there.
Is that how they find the control room?
Yeah, I think
in Corellian Trilogy, the kids.
Sorry. In the Corellian Trilogy, no, because that's on Centerpoint.
Yeah, I thought it just might have been in the same thing, but I'm probably thinking the other scene there. Yeah.
Yeah, because they do find that they're like transferring information. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Basically, Foo Fighters. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about though?
I think there was just one other reference that I wanted to talk about. Where they're talking about like the history of Mon Mothma and like the rise of the Rebel Alliance, where it's just the political history of Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, where they try to point as like they were in conflict first, but then they started working together. Where Bail was trying to be like working within the Empire to reform stuff, but like the picture we get from like almost everything later, including Revenge of the Sith, is that they were kind of in lockstep opposing Palpatine the entire time. So it's not a huge change. It's not irreconcilable. It's just an interesting difference in how that kind of
there is evolved. A bit of an out in the Revenge of the Sith novelization though, because like Bail Organa specifically is like, listen, I might do some things where like you might not think that I'm on your side, but I'm just doing what I have to do to survive. So maybe that's like what's going on.
Like it's not a huge difference, but like it just presents them as more not being on the same side until later, instead of just
definitely a bit of a
approaching things differently.
Inconsistency, but I mean they got most of it right, which pretty impressive given there wasn't a whole lot to go off of.
No, there was basically nothing.
Yeah, and I do like how like Garm Bel Iblis, like they kept like Garm Bel Iblis, and I guess all the other Alliance founders, even like in the Force Unleashed, they kind of keep that same dynamic going, which I don't know, I thought was pretty cool.
Well, everyone knows the tale of the main rebel leadership of Garm Bel Iblis, Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and Starkiller.
I am kind of shocked that Garm Bel Iblis hasn't. He would have been such an easy character to bring back in the canon.
Yeah, but I think he like when you already have Saw Gerrera taking that role, he's a harder one to fit in because like he's the Kid Gloves version of the edginess that Saw Gerrera has, where it's harder to be like presenting those two sides as in there. He's this third side where it's just Mon Mothma but slightly less Mon Mothma, or Saw Gerrera but less Saw Gerrera. He was someone that I'd be cool with seeing him come in another way, using other aspects of his character. But as far as using him as a foil for Mon Mothma, which is all he could have done so far, in the stories that they've done so far, we've already got that with Saw. So I don't.
I've got a question for you. How would you feel if they moved a bunch of the post-Endor characters of Legends, like, Garmbel Iblis or Talon Card? How would you feel if they moved them now to
High Republic?
No, the post Episode 9, whatever pops up there? How would you feel about that?
I'd be fine with that.
Me too, I think.
Like having, or even just closer to the Resistance stuff, where like the Talon Card character ends up being someone who kind of was leading smuggling organizations throughout the First Order. Like I can see that being a thing.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think. I like when someone in the chat says, "I like when Kit blows up Karita and Garm is like." I think that's it for me, though. Yeah. I think we got a nice reference to a Lancer frigate, which I think you talked about.
No, I just mentioned the Carracks they had, and there was the comparison to the Lancer there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the very last thing I want to say is there's a scene where they go into the head engineer's office, and it talks about how he's got all these like failed Imperial projects or like Imperial prototype super weapons and stuff as like on his shelves and stuff, and Dala basically sees them as toys. That would have been a really cool, like hyperspace article or something, just like detailing all of them. Would have been fun.
And then they could sell them as toys.
Yeah. But shall we move to the ranking?
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna do the specific rankings anymore because we're like 15 books deep now, and it was hard to keep track of it all.
Okay, fair
but
enough.
We'll go to that page and we'll see if we want to change it at all. Do you remember? I think we both put Last Command first, or I put Last Command first. You put it after Plagueis, something like that.
I think I put Plagueis. I think I put it first too. But I think,
so this is accurate, other than not having Last Command. If you want to look at the stream there and see where you'd put.
Okay. For me, I think I would actually. This is tough. I think maybe right above Jedi Healer or above Iron Fist, perhaps.
All right, so that still ends up in about your top half. I'm just going to describe it a little bit for the audio listeners who can't see this right now. But we've both got Plagueis just under Last Command in the first lot, then basically the rest of the Thrawn trilogy. At the bottom, we've still got Trusa Bakura and Krytos. So you'd put it in around...
I know it's hard because for me, this is like a really good one. It's not excellent, but to be fair, for me, besides for Krytos Trap, all of these fall there. So it's like, do I really like it more than Wraith Squadron? Probably not, I guess, but to put it at like 11th makes it feel kind of like I'm not giving it enough credit, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe above Courtship, I guess. So right under Iron Fist, above Courtship, maybe.
I'm basically doing the same thing, where for you, right above Courtship makes it your new 9th place. Courtship's now 10. Then you have Wraith, Solo, Trusa Bakura, Krytos. I am going to put it 11th, right above Courtship, below Wedge's Gamble, just ahead of Trusa Bakura and Krytos Chap.
Yeah, I liked it significantly more than Courtship. And I think if I were redoing this list, I'd probably switch Courtship and Wraith Squadron.
But, I mean, you can.
Yeah.
Like, I can still keep track of it. It's just we probably won't do like a full rundown at the end of every episode. We'll just maybe keep a spreadsheet somewhere that people can access. We'll talk about that later.
And the reason why people are saying, you've got 2 3s, the reasons for that is just because...
That's how I updated it when it was being added. Because the last time this was added was Dark Force Rising.
But general thoughts for you, though, Corey, on the book? What did you enjoy? What did you not?
I really liked it, other than like the blob racing I didn't like as much as you seem to. And the only real quibble I had with the other stuff was the the lack of hyperspace, like the non-hyperspace travel. That was weird, but other than that, I think it's a really fun one.
Yeah.
It's probably going to remain closer to the middle or bottom end of my overall rankings, honestly, but not out of dislike. There's just no parts of it that stand out to me as like exceptional. Like there's nothing that really sticks with me from it. So we'll see how that goes. But we do have some.
Yeah. For me, it's similar. I really like the stuff on Coruscant, especially. I really like the integration with the other EU stuff. But let's move on to some emails. Do you want me to read the first one, Corey?
Sure. We got a lot of emails this time, actually. So thank you all for your emails. There were a few just thanking us for the podcast. So thank you guys for enjoying it. But we'll probably try to just stick directly to the question parts of it. Because there are a lot of long emails this week, which we love reading. But just for time, we probably won't read them all directly on the podcast.
And where we've got so many, maybe we'll just not do chat questions today.
Yeah, that might be for the best.
So the first one is from Ian. Let's see. I'm looking forward to the Jedi, which I've already read part of. I'm curious about the ratings. Maybe I missed an announcement in the last few episodes about those. So we didn't do ratings for the comics just because they were too different. And then the next one seems to be the next part of Ian's question is kind of about the Clone Wars stuff, retconned by the Clone Wars animated material, and kind of just generally about how fans like to talk more about the post-Endor stuff of Legends. For me, that's really just because when the post-Endor stuff was being written, I guess... I don't know, it's just kind of unique because, like, for the Clone Wars, it was kind of after Star Wars' revitalization, and I just think that alone kind of makes the stories a little less, not less notable, but just different, I guess. And growing up, I just like the post-Endor stuff more, and I like the post-Endor in the New Republic more than the Clone Wars. So that's why, for me, what do you think there's any reason why the post-Return of the Jedi material is more loved than some of the Clone Wars Legends content?
Like I think there's a few parts to that. Part of it is something that you actually did a video on with the last Thrawn book that came out, where it's at a point where we kind of know what's going to happen, whereas with the post-Endor stuff, it was creating the situations as it went. You didn't really know what was going to happen, and especially with Del Rey, when some of the stakes got raised as far as what they were willing to do with characters, like there was still some of that in the Bantam era where they were setting up the Jedi. You didn't know what was going to happen with that. Palpatine did come back. But with prequel books, you kind of already had the major plot set out. Like you had episode 2, you had episode 3, and then you were kind of filling in those gaps. And as much as people may enjoy the Clone Wars stories, it's not going to have the same impact because you have a shorter period of time to cover a galactic war, but we know exactly where it's going to end. And you can kind of see the same thing where books set between the original trilogy aren't the same thing, whereas like if you want your Clone Wars or Galactic Civil War experience, for a lot of people that's going to just mean watching those movies, but we didn't have that with post Endor. And
that's well said.
I think that's the main reason. I don't think it's necessarily that like they're inherently better, just that is all you had at the time, and that, or worse, that's all you had at the time, and they were kind of setting up their own narratives rather than just filling in gaps.
Okay. The next question is from Mandalore, or Tristan. He points out correctly. I never noticed this, but Isard actually has 2 different colored eyes, which probably speaks the duality of her personality.
We should probably go back and read those books again, because I entirely missed that.
But this is an interesting question. Well, there's 2. One is, why so much focus on Dala and Isard? It's honestly just probably a little bit of men writing female Star Wars characters.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit there, but you said focus on their hair? Right? Yeah,
their hair. Because, they don't focus on men's hair like that. Again, it's probably just, writing star women as a man. Like, that'd be my guess. And the other question is, so there are lots of characters who are represented as great threats in minds, like Isard and Dala, but they probably don't really follow through with that. My take on that is just the quality. I don't know. Like, I don't think Dala really gets a fair shake in this one because I don't think there was a whole lot she could do. But just generally, it's just Star Wars isn't super complex, I guess, in that aspect.
Yeah. Like Dala gets kind of more successful later on, where she ends up running the Empire in the wake of what Jason's doing, or running the Galactic Alliance. Yep. But I think part of it comes from the fact that they were villains, and villains in this era just couldn't be successful at much because by the end of the series, nothing could really have changed. Like, you get a little bit farther with individual goals. You could introduce a few characters here and there, but ultimately you can't kill off characters. You can't have the New Republic lose. So especially with Isard and with Dala, the stuff they're introduced in, while they are the primary villains, there's a lot of other stuff going on that their storylines kind of just become secondary. Like, Isard is only introduced relatively late as a character. You don't see as much of her. So they don't have much room to be successful. So as much as the books want to like build them up to be a threat, they have limited room to maneuver. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, especially Isard, you're right, because she is thrown back into... We know exactly what happens with the New Republic because she comes in pre-Thrawn but was written afterwards. So there's only so much that she can do. But yeah. It's hard to show a character who has to lose as being really intelligent unless there's somebody like Thrawn, and them being intelligent is like the defining aspect of their character.
Yeah, and like even with Thrawn, by the end you were right back where you were when you started. It's just in the Thrawn trilogy there was so much more focus on Thrawn as a character. Like, you spend almost as much time with Thrawn as you do with anyone else. And in at least so far in Jedi Search, you get a couple chapters in the Maw installation. Even then you're spending more time with Kui. And throughout the next bits, like the main villain arc really does focus more on Exar Kun, and then Dala's kind of like a B story the entire time.
Yeah, and then she's pretty. She doesn't do so well later on either. But yeah, let's move on. Thank you for that email, Tristan. We got Callum. Is Han now the chosen one because he technically killed Palpatine? Well, bringing balance to the Force. So no. Problem with Dala, yeah. I mean, there's a bit of an issue with Dala being in the Maw so long, not having any contact with the outside. I guess, I mean, there's a big base there, so in Star Wars probably has some pretty impressive miniaturization technology.
Yeah, I think the supplies are implied to be on the base rather than just what the Star Destroyers normally carry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then finally, if this was the movies, people would be complaining why ship has some Sun Crusher armor. Well, we complained about that as well. Let's move on. We got an email from Gabe thanking us for the podcast. Thank you very much, Gabe. Much appreciated, my dude. Pumi asks, let's see. Just getting this email. I've read all of these when they came in, but trying to pick up the questions from them.
I was wondering how the Jedi Knight games, especially Jedi Academy, do or do not correlate with the Jedi Academy Trilogy. Maybe you can touch on that a little bit. So they're set typically a bit later. Like Outcast is around this time, I believe. No, Outcast would be
after, because Luke has his temple set up.
And then, like, that's a much closer time period to now, or what the book presents as now, a little bit later. But it fits in pretty much fine. Like, Kyle's obviously not part of this initial group, but it's later enough that the fact that it's as established as it is makes sense. And the stuff with Jaden is, I think it's like after 19.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Jaden only gets really introduced in Fate of the Jedi, from what I remember.
Yeah, so they don't like have direct connections very much, but there's nothing that conflicts. It's just the characters are fairly different. So you can just imagine in the background some of the
the only way it gets really dicey, I think, is with like the Imperial Remnant.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of more like like the Imperial Remnants that usually are being messed with in the Jedi Knight games. I feel like don't really correspond with the major Imperial factions that we know exist otherwise. But I don't really see that as much of a problem, to be honest.
Yeah, there's still more like independent cults and warlords and some loose
Yeah.
connections to what at that point would be Dallas slash Pellions by by Academy at least.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because like I think there's got to be like a 7 year difference between Outcast and Academy. Kyle's fully integrated into the Jedi Order by the time of Academy again.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's not much overlap, but there's not any contradiction there.
Yep. I think that's a good way to put it, which is fine when you're doing the lore. And I mean, we do have Mara Jade in Dark Forces 2 that Mara is in. The expansion, I can't remember. It's been so long. Anyway, I think our final question of the day comes from Justin, which is also my name. That's pretty cool. Would you say that the Rise of Skywalker's novelization has had a bit of an opposite reaction with the Revenge of the Sith novelization for the respective movies? Or have the brighter spots been buried underneath all the hate? Okay, the main problem with this is, and I don't want to get too in depth because I did get sent the book. The book's not been released yet. I don't want to piss off Del Rey, but the people who are complaining about the book have not read it. The book is only out for a few people, whether YouTubers or whoever videos detailing what happens in the book. That's not going to give you context. So any reaction at this point is premature. I don't think the book is going to get a Revenge of the Sith novelization reaction based on my reading of it. That's not to say it's bad. It's just that's a very, very high bar. And I do think there are brighter spots. It's not even that they've been buried beneath all the hate for the few bad parts. It's just that no one's read it yet. They've only, they're only reacting to snippets. So that's the main issue.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm not on their reading list, so I wasn't sent one. So I've got nothing to add. It's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine though.
It is fine.
And if they listen to this podcast, it would make absolute sense why I wouldn't be sent anything. Because we talk about the wet gushing hole.
Yeah. I think
actually, there is something I do want to. The fan reaction to Revenge of the Sith and to Rise of Skywalker was very different as well. As much as the prequels weren't liked at the time, I think the general reaction to stuff that happened in Episode 3 was both that it was expected and generally positive as far as like moments go. So having a book where you're starting with that and getting to just flesh out the parts of the prequels that people may have a problem with, it's a bit of an easier place to start from. Whereas with Rise of Skywalker, while there were moments that people liked, it wasn't the same kind of reactions like, we've all been looking forward to this fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan for fucking 40 years. We knew it was coming. You don't just get to add context behind that. You kind of have to explain like where Palpatine came from, like what's Palpatine's situation when like you're kind of saddled with not just expanding on fun, but explaining to people why stuff that they don't think should have happened. So I do think it's a much more difficult position to be in.
It's a very difficult position.
So it's not as comparable no matter what the reaction ends up being to the book. And I don't think no matter how good it is, I don't think it's going to be seen the same way as Revenge of the Sith, and I don't think it's really starting from the same point of comparison. But yeah,
that's 100%. That's 100% right. Like Ray Carson had an unenviable task. Like it would have been very difficult for her to make a story that, like, she couldn't make a story that would make people who were iffy about the movie love it more, because you can't because the issues that people have with The Rise of Skywalker can't be fixed by any sort of explanation. Context isn't.
in episode 3, maybe you're thinking, oh, I want to see more about like how are the senators opposing him? How is Anakin feeling about talking to the Jedi Council? But with episode 9, I feel like people were mostly coming out saying like, okay, explain to me how the fuck Palpatine is there. And they're not looking as like, oh, explain to me how Palpatine is there. They're like, how is fucking Palpatine there?
Mm-hmm.
And there's not an explanation that they're going to be happy with. Mm-hmm. So the fact that the book is like gives some of that information, it's still going to be kind of the same reaction. And I don't think it's starting from the same position.
I agree completely. I want to take a second to thank everyone for I'm sure you have too, lots of positive feedback lately about the podcast. You guys are enjoying it. That's exactly what we're looking for. Make sure you send us your emails, even if we don't read a specific question on the podcast itself, or if there's no question, just send it to us. We read every single one of them.
Yeah, and that's Tapcaf Transmissions at gmail.com. Yeah, TAPCAF, no E.
We're so fucking stupid with that title. Like, why? What
were we thinking?
Yeah.
Well, we did the first video asking people to give us name suggestions. Remember?
Yeah.
So really, it's everyone else's fault. Mm-hmm. But oh well. Like I stuck with Thrawn's Revenge as a name for the mod for 14 years of it, and we regretted it. But we'll push through. We'll make it work. I like the title. It's just not the most searchable because Tapcaf is spelled 2 different ways.
Yeah.
So it's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine here. How are you?
Fine. Good. All right, guys. With that, I think we'll end the podcast. Thanks for watching. Next episode is Dark Apprentice, right? That's book 2? Yeah, Dark Apprentice. That will most likely be, barring any crazy situations, the 26th of March.
Yep.
And we will be streaming as well. I'm going to try the new Call of Duty Battle Royale. We'll be streaming that on this channel. Sorry, not this channel. His gaming channel.
Corey loses. X2 and Corey loses doing some Battle Royale Call of Duty.
Yeah. Sounds really bad, but it might be fun.
Yeah, we'll see. All
right. Well, goodbye for me.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. At Tapcaf Podcast on Twitter if you have other questions or comments. Tapcaf Transmissions at gmail.com if you want to send in some emails for next episode, either if you want to ask something about Jedi Search or if you have something about Dark Apprentice. Send those emails. Make us feel validated as podcast hosts. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time. Good night.
Goodbye.